Hello, everyone. Welcome to Fun Speculation Podcast. This is the 35th episode of the show. We didn't have one last week. We ended up having another show that almost was like this show. I guess it could have been this show, but we only had one topic, so we had to go early. But I appreciate everybody being here on FSP and all of the content that we do here on Fun Speculation. Whether you drop by just for a second, whether you watch the whole thing, appreciate everybody regardless. You guys freaking rock. One of the best communities around, in my opinion, because all real people, all real thoughts, and just means a lot to me that you guys tune in every single week. Appreciate it. So, we got a lot to talk about. It was a pretty busy Monday for gaming news, and not anything like massive happened today. I think there may be some cool stuff happening tomorrow, from what it seems, but still some like interesting stuff going on in the world of gaming, and we're going to try and cover as much as we possibly can. And we have an amazing panel as always with family here at Fun Speculation. And I want to say welcome back to Fun Speculation Podcast to Psychonauts. Welcome back, bro.
Thank you. It's been a while, and it's good to be back. I know last week we had I still wasn't here, but yeah, it was a crazy week. If you guys haven't heard, I was moving my brother from out of state, and came back and had a hurricane. So yeah, it was an eventful week.
Yeah,
but luckily we didn't have nothing bad. But
glad you avoided the worst of the hurricane. I think it's shifting saved y'all a little bit, right? So for where y'all are at. It ended up screwing over a lot of other people. Shout out to anybody that's still dealing with a lot of consequences from that storm.
I got a friend on the Atlantic side. He hasn't had internet for like 5 days. His power's out for like 4. He's still out.
Still crazy, man. A lot of flooding. You know, Pong's dad had flooding and stuff too. It's not great. You know what I mean? But glad that you're back, dude. As always, a big part of everything we do. So we missed you when you were gone. Yo, what's up, Fuzz? The always fuzzy one. How are you doing?
Doing pretty good, man. This this past few weeks, as far as Sony stepping on rakes, seems to be continuing, and man, just glad to be here to voice some stuff on this. But man, it's awesome being with you guys, and I can't wait to get into it. So let's do this.
Right on, man. Yeah, I'm excited to get your thoughts on all this stuff, and thanks again, Fuzzy, for helping with our tidbits, and Jasper as well. Speaking of Jasper, how are you?
Doing all right. Just taking care of business, and just doing my own thing, I guess.
Yeah. You've been posting those sweaty clips from COD. I've been seeing.
Yeah.
It's a 34-4 clip with your gunship and everything. I saw that last night. You get some YouTube shorts. I see you pumping that stuff out. I'm sure there'll be lots more of that to come from where that came from when COD
for sure. I'm planning on since COD campaigns are kind of short, I'm planning on streaming like the entire campaign when it comes out on Realism. So
yeah,
try to do that in like one sitting or 2 sittings.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know if I'll be able to get to the damn campaign because like Gotham Knights comes out when the campaign drops early, and I'm going to be on Gotham Knights, so I'll just
you got a day of Gotham Knights, and then the COD campaign's gonna be short, so that's why you just finish that and get the other 5 days back to Gotham Knights.
I'm just worried I'll get like as into Gotham Knights as I am into NBA right now, and I just won't want to play anything else.
But there's an end to Gotham Knights. There's no end to NBA.
Yeah, but like, is there? There's but like you could still.
Well, you got to reach the end. You sometimes don't do that.
I'll take Gotham Knights right now because I've been craving that. We're going to talk a lot about remasters today and stuff, but that's like Arkham games need it and other games don't. So I'll get this. This is the closest thing we're getting to an Arkham, next gen experience right now. So 3-bit, man, it's awesome to have you here as always, dude. And you've been busy as always, I'm sure. I'm interested with some of these topics today because you're going to have an interesting perspective as a game dev, for one of them. So I'm glad that you're here, man.
Yeah, it's glad to be here. I've been pretty busy this week, but most of my work is live. So if you, for some reason, want Affleck, a lot of my animations and commercials are up. So that's basically what I've been working on. Some of that stuff. Fable-y stuff, or table-y, rhymes with fable-y. I've been working on that stuff and been tired, but I've been trying to get back into a lot of just random games I've just been playing on my PC, like GTA 5 and stuff like that, and this house game that Jasper said has some stuff in it, but I didn't know that. But yeah, I just been trying to get back into the fuel of things, but glad to be here. Hello, everyone.
We'll get started with this. Microsoft today had an update, to their website, and they created a whole section for Activision Blizzard acquisition. Like this, got this dedicated section on their website now that just says Activision Blizzard acquisition. And I found that very interesting. There's been some different takes on it. I don't know what to think right now. I'm kind of like back and forth because there's some out there like Hogue Law had posted that he's going to make a video on this, and he said that like it does have a little bit of hint that like maybe they're not as confident potentially in this, so like that's why they may have done this website. And when he made that post, I'm like, you know what? Maybe I agree with that a little bit because like that's a lot of putting this out there. Maybe it's to try and help get it through. Maybe they felt a necessity to do so. I don't think it's like desperation or anything like that. But obviously they're trying to do everything they can right now, you know what I mean, to go along with the regulators and put information out there. As Pong said in our DMs, part of the education process and all that kind of stuff.
Stay ahead of the narrative that's going around.
Stay ahead of the narrative. I found it interesting still, the fact that they felt a need to do this. Like, it reminded me of some things when like companies put out like postings, and if you like, I kind of found it like, like DirecTV loses like Fox Sports or something like that. We're negotiating with Fox Sports. They pulled our content off. Send them a letter, telling us how much you want Fox Sports on DirecTV or whatever. Or you know what I mean? Anybody that's had satellite or cable has had some of those situations, and they sometimes have like websites that kind of like informational, points about like what's going on and stuff.
Fox is trying to charge us $10 extra per channel.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Like, I don't care, man. Just give me my channels back. You know what I mean? Like, this is like, not that this is actually the same situation at all. It's just like, it was funny, kind of reminding me of some stuff like that. So again, I don't think there's any desperation here. I saw Calorie in the chat saying like, people that are thinking this is like a desperate move for Microsoft is a pretty bad take. I agree with that. I don't think it's desperate at all, but I do find it interesting that they felt the necessity to do so, to have this site. So I want to kind of go through and get some takes on some of the points that they're bringing forth through this website, because this is the message, and you can tell this is like a for everybody type posting. This is the language used in a lot of this is not like the legal type, language that would usually be used to talk to like contractual type stuff or like dealing specifically with regulators. It's more like forward towards a regular audience, right? Because it seems like somebody on Twitter like could have wrote a lot of these things up, you know what I mean, the way that they're worded here. So they break down first off with benefits of Xbox plus Activision Blizzard, right? So we'll get into this. It says benefits for players: more games on more devices, including Xbox, PlayStation, phones, and online. Interesting that they didn't say mobile. Again, like I'm saying, they're talking about different devices specifically. So
it's also interesting they actually named PlayStation.
They did name PlayStation as a point. What was the purpose of them naming PlayStation? Is it to show the regulators that they're including PlayStation publicly in their announcements to everybody? You think?
I kind of thought of this whole thing as just like, I kind of imagine as someone like standing in like a big like fancy legal room or whatever, and there's like, instead of having a PowerPoint, they just pull up the website. It's kind of like a pamphlet. It's like, here's our idea for the future of Bethesda and Activision or whatever. It's like,
good to have a central place where a lot of the info is, especially. I mean, we could get to it after. I don't know what order you want to do it, Mav, but do you want to read it first?
Which part?
You were going through the first part.
Yeah. Okay. So there's more here. It says choice in how and where people buy games with subscription and one-off purchases. Talking about they're introducing a new model that people aren't really used to using. So they're trying to offer diversity with the way people access their games, including new games, right? Then it says for the 95% of gamers who play on phones, alternatives to gaming offerings from the dominant mobile platforms. Again, they've been reiterating this from the beginning, that the main reason they're acquiring Activision Blizzard is not necessarily because of Call of Duty. It's because of King and their whole mobile division and everything that brings. Because guess who has a dominant market share on that stuff is Google and Apple, right? They have the storefronts on mobile devices that if you buy a game on an Android device, you're probably using Google Play. If you buy a game on an Apple device, you're probably using the Apple Store, whatever it's is it called the App Store? I think on Apple, whatever it's called. So
iTunes.
Well, there's iTunes, but they actually I think it just says App Store on the app.
Yeah.
I'm not sure exactly what it's called now for them, but it's for the 95% of gamers who play. So they're talking about the majority of gamers here. 95% of gamers play on phones, right? Even if you do play also on console, a lot of gamers that play on console also play games on phones, whether it be a traditional type game or whatever. You play a lot on mobile as well, right, Jasper? A little bit.
Yeah, every now and then, depending on the game when it's out.
You see the industry moving more towards this, like Ubisoft and Disney at their shows had a lot of mobile presence at their major showcases, right?
Mobile games now are about as good as like console games from last generation. So,
right,
yeah,
like better than Switch games.
Yeah.
I'm not trying to smash the Switch. I'm just saying, like there's a lot of those games that they showed at the Ubisoft or the Disney thing that are made for mobile that look like they may not even be able to run on a Switch. you know. So Psycho, do you think that they're gearing this message up, talking more about bringing games to mobile devices as opposed to like trying to keep them off of PlayStation?
Are you here?
Psycho?
Okay, he's not here.
He's here, not here. Unless, you know, is there a whisper of Psycho? Maybe he's banging somebody's mom right now. That's probably what's going on.
I could answer that question.
I
think,
go for it.
Oh no, he's here. Go ahead, Psycho.
Oh, wait,
can't hear you.
Mic?
He has no mic.
Oh, okay. His mic is not working. That was what that meant.
Is that what it meant? Okay.
Yeah. I think again, I think this pamphlet is just kind of just educating people and putting it all in one spot, so to sort of give them more ammo of the regulator whole position, because it seems like if you go back to the tweets a couple of weeks ago, with the CMA, with the what was it, UK, where they're just going back and just hinting at Sony's talking points that they've been repeating. They're like, hey, we think this is bad and we're gonna review this, and basically just repeating everything Jim Ryan has probably been telling them, and we know that Jim Ryan has been talking to them because there's literally been reports that he's gone down there to try and stop this deal from happening. Sony's the only company that I know of that doesn't want this deal to happen. Every other company, like EA and Ubisoft and all these other big companies that are in the at least the publishing form of gaming, is fine with this deal. Sony just doesn't want it to happen because they are number one, and this deal sort of threatens a big threshold of their money, and that's basically what it is. They're number one. They don't want it. They don't want to go below that, which this what was saying, Satya was saying was, let us, if you want us to be competitive, let us be competitive, right? That makes sense in a lot of different ways, but I don't think a lot of people who aren't educated realize, like, hey, Microsoft is not, or Xbox is not number one when it comes to console sales. They're number 3. They're in last place if you want to consider Nintendo, Sony. They are last place, and you have to kind of talk to these regulators like they're kind of children in certain ways.
Yeah, they said that they don't know anything about the industry, and it came across when they made their postings, right? So it's like, now we're going to take the time to educate ourselves on the industry. So like, what? Okay, so you're already making like these rulings right now. You don't know jack shit. Like, this is okay. We have to go to phase 2 to figure out what the hell we're doing. It's pretty much. So
this is like the bullet point guide, I think, just to be like, okay, regulators, here is just some bullet points of like why this deal is beneficial for the gaming industry as a whole, and also them. More beneficial for Microsoft, because why wouldn't you benefit from a $70 billion deal? Right. But it's phrased in a way where you're just like, you're kind of babying these these regulators, which makes sense. That's the way
it gets even more like that. We'll get into some more of those conversations in a little bit. You got something to say, Psycho?
Yeah, so freaking, this, we kind of knew that they've been wanting to get into mobile, especially with cloud gaming. It makes sense, and then with Bethesda having, I believe, is it Roundhouse that is the
it's the other studio one. There's one more. That's the other one. I can't. Alpha Dog.
Yeah.
Yep.
So Alpha Dog. So that's one studio already, and then they will have, once this goes through, then we'll have King. I think, of course, King is huge with Candy Crush. So they definitely want to get into that market, because that is where a lot of just casual gamers play. And that's where a lot of the money is, because they just blatantly, they just spend money. Like, I have a couple games that I play on mobile that it's so blatantly obvious that it is a pay to win type game. And I still grind it because I like the game and the clan I'm in. But other than that, if it wasn't for, if the alliance I'm in, I probably wouldn't be playing. It's just, it's nice to see possibly Xbox coming in and having higher quality mobile games. And if they do a mobile Game Pass with those games, they could change a lot of things, especially, and then, with Google and the App Store, the Apple Store, they definitely, I believe Apple is closed. Google's open, or are they both closed?
You got to get. It's harder to get approval for Apple devices than Google devices.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like there's a Samsung app on Android. Like if you have a Galaxy, there's a
No one
Samsung,
uses that.
but nobody uses it, right? Like they all kind of gear towards like the Google stuff. Like it's all built in. All these new devices that are coming out, the Razer, the Logitech, people can be buying those with Google Play.
So Apple didn't approve it for a while because they didn't like the fact that you couldn't buy the games or something through their service.
Yeah, well, they still don't allow that. Like you just had
you have to do it through the browser, right?
Xbox bypassed it by just putting it on the Edge browser. Right.
Yeah, because they wanted individual games, so this way they can charge at 30% fee. I believe that's what it was for each game, and that's crazy, because that's a lot of money at the end of the day when you add up all those games and a 30%. And they kind of want to, because we've heard Microsoft trying to take their deal, their developer fee, I think, down to 18%. That was like rumored. So this generation definitely shows that Microsoft is changing things, and by getting this deal to go through King, they can focus on the mobile aspect, because Game Pass, is getting there. Once the games start coming out, you will see an increase in subscription services and things like that. But once this deal goes through, they can focus on the PC side, where there still needs a lot of work, and then they can maybe utilize the BattleNet with Game Pass, or whatever. They can utilize something with that, because BattleNet is just a better service than what Microsoft is offering right now. So definitely two things that Microsoft needs work on: PC and the mobile side, and this is definitely heavily geared towards helping that relationship and and helping and giving it back to the gamers out there.
Yeah, I think that them again reiterating the 95% and the purchase options and stuff is just a shot at Google and Apple, pretty much. You know what I mean? Like it's just saying like, hey, look, there's like 1.5 billion billion like mobile devices out there, or phones or something like that, and so half of those people are buying on Apple, half of them are buying on Google Play or whatever, and it's hard for anybody else to be able to get on those devices, and they have such a foothold on that industry. Microsoft tried to get into the mobile industry themselves directly with the Windows phones, right? They failed. Anybody else that tries to get in kind of fails, right? So within that, it's like, okay, it's either an Android-based device or an Apple device, and there's really no other options. So with those two being the only options there, it is even more of a dominant market share than in console gaming, where you have at least 3 players, right? And Microsoft seems willing to open up their policies if this goes through, right? And it's kind of laid out in this as well. They also go into benefits for game creators is the next thing they have. It says more ways to get games in front of more players through support, investment, and better access to gamers. Now, the interesting thing was here is two things. They said investment. That means they're strengthening their investment to the developers, right? And as the business grows, there's more investment, and that leads to more games getting developed, more studio growth, and all that kind of things. So making a healthier industry. So they're trying to paint that picture, and better access to gamers. Meaning, guess what? All of a sudden, these developers now, where they have their games in front of, what was it? There was 50 million Xbox Ones roughly last generation, right? Well, okay, so the Xbox games had a potential audience of 50 million plus whatever the PC market was for Xbox. Now you potentially have your Xbox games from these developers in front of billions of people, right? So guess what? More access leads to potential new growth with the games, right? Is that kind of how you see that, Fuzz?
Yeah, because their biggest thing is that they're putting their platform or making it accessible on pretty much multiple platforms, whether it be PC, mobile, your tablet, your TV now with a built-in app. I mean, it's definitely like the whole Game Pass model itself. Once you have that or have your game there, it's like day one. Instead of having to worry about, okay, how many copies did we sell? So we only sold, let's say 1 or 2 million copies. Well, you're automatically going to be in front of 30 million or however many subscribers for Game Pass. That opening day, and even if you only get like, let's say 2% of those that wind up actually buying the game or buying some sort of DLC, you have a bigger chance or more potential to earn revenue from a developer standpoint from that type of model than you do just solely on sales. Because there's a lot of games where people might be on the fence and wait for reviews or wait for a sale. And, having Game Pass where you automatically get that 15% discount on the actual title itself, that's more of that incentive. And plus you get to try it, and if you get hooked on it and the game is going to leave in like 3 months or 6 months or whatnot, you're more than likely going to pick up those customers that may not have purchased it at all, picking it up on the back end. So there's so many options that they give devs as far as greater potential or greater access to their customer base. Plus, they also, like, the reinvestment is back into like a game stack. Game stack is one of those things where all of the engines and all of the other server-based stuff that they own or that Microsoft owns is made accessible to a lot of these smaller developers, where much like the way, let's say Unreal Engine 5 is affordable for like a small dev team. If you're going to probably sell less than 1 million copies, they take a smaller cut. GameStack has something similar when it comes to their server or the Azure end of it for like game, multiplayer or online play and things like that. So they're trying their best. I mean, this whole website thing, like much like what 3-Bit was saying, it's kind of like, hey, we're the good guys. Here's all the stuff that we're doing, and it's like a I guess regulator class for those that it seemed from ever since their initial posting that they were completely out of sorts as far as knowing what was going on, other than what Sony put out there. So at least they get to put their side of the story out there, that the things that they are intending to do, and hopefully not just educating the regulators, but also any fans or I wouldn't say fans of them, but fans of like PlayStation that might be worried or concerned because of some of the stuff that Jim Ryan's been saying, to kind of hopefully put their mind at ease and maybe get them on board to tweet Jim Ryan or Sony to say, hey, maybe Game Pass on a PS5 or at least having a browser might not be such a bad thing at that point. But
I'm still curious why PlayStation removed the browser forward facing on their console, right? I mean,
but this could have been.
It didn't work because you guys just got jailbreaked.
Yeah, that's true. It did just get jailbroke.
Yeah, it definitely. It seemed like they maybe knew if there was a possibility of getting Game Pass on a browser. That's possibly one reason. Like, oh no, we can't have the competing subscription on our service, because then who would want our service? Because we don't offer what day one games like they do. So
imagine this. Imagine, right? So when PlayStation launched, it was without a browser. That's been a prominent feature of PlayStation for a long time.
That you said there was a way around it, like if you message someone like Google or whatever,
there's
like
supposed to be
the link
some way, but
Like
it's like
link.
I think it's like supposed to be like very limited and stuff. But like
and they kind of patched that out a bit. I think when they did that update when you could add the SSD, it made it even harder to do that exploit to get to the browser.
So imagine this, right? So I think they launched it without the browser, because could you imagine when Xbox got xCloud working on browsers, if then PlayStation removed the browser, right?
Yeah.
Like they knew this was coming, and that's why they removed the browser. Because if they did it then, it would have been seen as like anti-consumer, trying to remove options from your storefronts and marketplaces. But if you already don't have it on that system, then it's not removing something after this became a thing, right? So they were ahead of the like thinking on the browser situation, knowing where the direction of gaming was going. I believe.
I don't know, because like Switch didn't have it. Like I think it's just
Switch doesn't have a lot of things though, Jasper.
Yeah.
I mean, they
I think
got
it's just an easy
they just
thing
got
to cut off
Bluetooth
and
not
just,
too long
like-
ago.
Yeah.
I had a feeling it was about the cloud too. Like when it happened, I was just
Yeah.
like, just the timing of it when Xbox started announcing features.
Weren't there like statistics? So I was like, one of the most viewed things on like PlayStation was Pornhub or something like that. Like,
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was the most. It was the most.
Not no more.
Viewed
out of all the consoles or whatever. Like
out of
they're
all the
like,
consoles.
that's just freaking hilarious, right? There's a lot of sad PlayStation owners probably right now. I guess got a little bit more lonely this generation. So I'll go on to the next thing that they said. Better revenue and fair marketplace rules through our App Store policies. That goes into, I believe, talking about how, again, that Google and Apple have these really restrictive App Store policies and trying to have their own app, have better access and more diversity and options for the developers, options on how to make money and maybe make more money off of their app than potentially other apps, right? So, again, greater flexibility in payment systems and the experiences they provide their fans. So, again, talking about the subscription model kind of there, I believe. But then they go into benefits for the gaming industry, talking about more competition in mobile, where a couple of big players dominate, right? So, again, you're trying to, if you're the FTC or the CMA or the EU or one of these major regulators, you should be wanting more competition in certain spaces, right? And this is a kind of a play on Microsoft's end to try and say this is like going to help competition in the mobile space, which is clearly dominated by two entities, right? Then they say greater competition in traditional gaming, where Sony and Nintendo will remain the biggest. Now, again, I said this was like worded for like a regular audience, not necessarily like legal. They actually say the biggest. So, greater competition in traditional gaming, where Sony and Nintendo will remain the biggest. Right. So again, they're trying to say that, you know what, Sony and Nintendo are still going to be larger players in the console space, which is what y'all are all complaining about here, and which is just one entity in the wider gaming industry, right? Which is one sub market of the bigger gaming industry, and they're just trying to be more competitive there. Right?
I feel like that one is I don't know. Like, yes, but if you
they won't eventually, and
they'll
have a bigger piece of the pie, I think.
Yeah, I guess it depends on what they mean by that, because if you're looking at revenue for the year by them combining with Activision, it'll be at least
that's
close.
the thing. That statement, you can take that any way you want, because like maybe we're saying console sales, maybe they'll remain the biggest in console sales. Like
right.
That's an open statement where you can just apply it anywhere.
Yeah, I mean technically it's true. But I'm just wondering like what they. I mean, they could kind of get away with that statement a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah,
it's kind of like it's a snapshot of like current time as opposed to what it might be 5 or 10 years down the road type of thing.
Yeah, like technically, but really, and it is a big deal. I mean, Activision makes a lot of money. Call of Duty is a huge franchise, but like honestly, like a lot of what Sony's biggest mistake, I think, is just focusing on Call of Duty, because like literally Phil is just like, ooh, look at Call of Duty, ooh. And he has like all these not thousands, but like a whole bunch of valuable IPs like right behind him that he's hiding in his like little satchel. So I don't know.
I mean, it's an important part of it, I think, but it's like it's not the most important part for Microsoft here. You know what I mean? It's Call of Duty, but that's the most important to PlayStation, right? So that's why they're making that case.
So short-sighted to me.
It is. It shows like they're playing on different fields. You know what I mean?
But they're also not wrong. That is one of the most important things to PlayStation.
It is for sure. So that's what they're scared of losing, right? Yeah. But the fact that they feel like they can't compete without it, that's how their energy is. is like very weak. You know,
terrible business sense. Then, if you're relying on a third party for your own business, I don't know. Like,
well, I mean, that's kind of how all consoles are, really. Like,
90%
of the revenue comes from third party.
But again, you know, Microsoft points out PlayStation and the benefits for players: more games and more devices, including Xbox, PlayStation, phones, and online. So they're talking about still COD on PlayStation, but maybe COD will also be like on other devices as well, right? But they didn't mention Nintendo here in that statement. They only mentioned PlayStation, right? Which I found was pretty interesting. Then they go on to say emphasis on, this is the one that gets overlooked a lot by the regulators. The FTC originally and some of like the senators in the U.S. tried to make a big stink about the employment thing, which was quickly shut down, and they lost all their talking points. Emphasis on positive workplace culture and increased local investment from Microsoft and studios and creative ecosystems around the world. Now Microsoft can already back that up, because in all of the other studios that they've acquired, they've been growing their investment in them, right? And they've put them in new buildings, new studios, or, you know, they're constantly hiring. A lot of these have grown exponentially since they've been acquired. They've been funding new projects that would have not ever been funded otherwise. They have allowed more time on development for other projects, from like Double Fine, Psychonauts 2 got more time, right? Other situations. And they have evidence of all of this backed by what they've been doing within their track record.
Even like Tomb Raider. Like you look at Street Fighter 5, right? I see people use that example a lot in like different spaces and toxic places, where they say Street Fighter 5 never came to Xbox because they helped fund it. But then you look at like Tomb Raider, which Microsoft helped fund, and it was on multiple consoles. So it's just like, I don't know.
Not the original though. The original they did that was, so the Tomb Raider trilogy, right?
Yeah, I'm talking about the first.
Oh, the original Tomb Raiders way back in the day.
No, I mean like
the one from 2013 or whatever.
The 2013 one was a exclusive on Xbox.
It was exclusive for a limited time.
Like a year.
For a year.
Street Fighter never, that never came.
Yeah, it never came. And Final Fantasy's never come. Final Fantasy 7 remake.
I gave up on Final Fantasy.
Yeah, Final Fantasy 16's not coming, and they can use all those as examples. But like the Tomb Raider thing, like that was like an old Xbox, and I see that brought up a lot too, 3-bit. And it doesn't really like Phil Spencer's already come out and said he's not a fan of that model, and they haven't been doing that since. Right? People point to games that are like Game Pass deals or exclusive to Xbox that are from third party, and a lot of those are not the same situation. It's like the smaller teams, smaller studios that can only afford to bring something, or they're funded by Microsoft or whatever. But if you have a massive IP like a Street Fighter or like a Final Fantasy or something like that, it's like that would normally be everywhere. You know what I mean? Tomb Raider was the same situation. That's why I brought it. Like Tomb Raider was that same situation back then, but they got away from that because they're not a fan of it. It doesn't fit with their model. I've been critical of them, saying, "Hey, while your first party was weak, you could have done more of that to compete with PlayStation because they've been taking things off of Xbox."
Titanfall would probably be a better example of
that. Titanfall was early Xbox generation as well. It was one.
Titanfall, yeah.
Well, if you look at Dead Rising 4, that one was I think a 6-month exclusive deal for the most recent of Dead Rising, and then it went to PlayStation as like a complete edition. A better example is Dying Light 2. If we remember, Microsoft helped put some funding towards that, and that was everywhere day one. So they've definitely grown from that model, and whether it's a credit to Phil and the leadership over at Microsoft for, doing away with that whole timed exclusivity. But most of the timed exclusivity that you see is like usually a year or less, or 6 months or less. And it seems like it's mainly been with smaller teams. I mean, sure, the subscription might be exclusive where you don't see it in like a PS Plus.
Soccer 2 is about 3 months or whatever. So
yeah.
So
it's all the stuff now is just, they'll do it for a limited time, but it's almost like until that small dev team has enough manpower or time to be able to port it over to PlayStation. Once it's ready, it's like, okay, give us about 6 months to port it over. Okay, yeah, you can go ahead and do that. And it seems like that's been their way ever since this.
They have a a trail of games that do that, and then so if regulators, that's why I was saying like, or I think it was Mav that said it, like PlayStation doesn't want to get into a match of logistics because they will lose because they have such a library of examples of them doing the opposite of what they're saying is bad. Like they are very much hypocritical in a lot of senses of basically locking games away and saying that it's bad when Microsoft does it.
But it's for their players,
For
so it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Like to me, it's like it's a company. You make your money and do what you need to do, I guess. But at least like back up what you're saying. Like at least if you're gonna say that, like, oh, their Activision is gonna ruin gaming. We need those gamers, or and then meanwhile you're not
That
making
same
content.
week, Call of Duty beta is exclusive to your console.
Yeah, that same week, the franchise you're complaining about, you have exclusive content for. Like, really, there's such a huge paper trail with PlayStation. It's hard for me to take anything Jim Ryan says seriously. Like, just like literally having examples of what he's saying is bad in like the same week, almost every single time. It's it's ridiculous.
Right.
There's a Modern Warfare PlayStation 5 bundle out there too. And it's a more expensive bundle than their Horizon Forbidden West one. So it's like
making that money
getting their money's worth.
before they can.
Yeah, because it's $560.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And I think the Horizon bundle is $550.
Yeah.
Just so you know, your share screen things on.
Yeah, I know. I'm trying to bring this up real quick. Okay, maybe this is it. Yeah, I'm trying to bring this. Here we go. They also released this slide, right? I'm trying to see if I can get this to work. No, I don't want to help you improve Adobe products. Okay, here we go. All right, so they released this slide, which are there's two images to this, right? And I found them
Doom,
very
1993.
And what they're trying to do here is portray the growth of the gaming industry, right? And where it's going, right? And you can see like where Microsoft's head is, okay? Because you have the original. This is a slide of like market share and of like devices accessing the industry, pretty much, and the growth of gaming, right? You start off in the 70s, very slim audience, right? Then you go into growing with the arcade, and then the console space. It starts growing, then it has that crash in the 80s, right? You can see that right here on this line. Then they go into handheld gaming starts taking off, right? Up in the 90s, right? And that continues to grow. And then you also have the console space kind of staying pretty steady from 2000 and not really growing dramatically, right? And we've talked about that a lot because and Jim Ryan has said this as well. PlayStation like user base is pretty much capped at around 150 million is when they sold a PS2, or 170 or something like that. They haven't reached that number again, right? They haven't reached the amount of devices they sold that they did in the PS2 era. The PS3 had like 80 something million. The PS4 was like 120 or so. And now we have the PS5, right? It's not going to reach 150 million. It's not going to reach the PS2 numbers, okay? Switch is the closest thing that could potentially reach to that status. But like still, you see this growth from the 2000s to now, and console gaming is still about the same user base. But what's been growing? What's been growing is PC. It has been growing substantially. But also look at mobile, right? Mobile gaming, here's in the red, is absolutely astronomical and overtaking the gaming industry, right?
I think actually the takeaway from this is look how quickly things can change. Like look at how big the arcade was, and then it's nothing. Look how big handheld was becoming, and then it's nothing. And that's their fear with, I think, consoles. That's why they're trying to branch out into everything, is because consoles the logical next step to become nothing out of all that.
Yeah. Eventually, as tech improves, right, native hardware will be less of a necessity, right? And this is not saying Xbox is getting out of the hardware game, which people are kind of trying
They're
to
just
make
looking
that.
towards the future.
Yeah, it's looking for like way in advance. And will there still be a market for hardware? Yes, right. And will they still sell a device to access that hardware?
Arcade's there, but it's like 1%. Like it's still on the list. It's just not there.
Even if it's built within the cloud and stuff, they gotta still have it based on a device like type mark that they gotta hit, right? And like the cloud right now is based on Series X's, right? They got Series X's running basically the cloud infrastructure here. So that's where that is. But you see mobile's exploding, and they see the amount of people that are playing games on mobile devices, and they want a piece of that. So they just Google and Apple, right? But they're not going to be able to do it the traditional way, like they've tried with Windows phones and stuff like that, and take a big slice of that. So guess what? They're going to bring the traditional console experience, is what they're trying to do, and make it more accessible for everybody. The best games, right? The best games around. They're trying to bring it into that space, and that's their way to compete into that mobile space. And they're not only that, but a new model, the subscription model of that type of gaming, is more palatable for a lot of people, as opposed to how many people are going to drop $60, $70 every time a new game drops and have a $500 piece of hardware to play them, right? That's been pretty much capped out at the audience size that is willing to do that for a long time.
Especially going back to that mobile argument where mobile games are becoming greater, but most mobile games are also free to play. So it's like I can drop $70 for this game or play kind of the same kind of thing, but on mobile for free. So it's like,
yeah.
So this is the dollar amounts. 85 billion is mobile, 40 billion is PC, 33 billion on console. I think that's revenue. Yeah, revenue amount spent. So mobile space is like a huge amount of revenue, right? I don't know what the player counts are here, right? But I mean, the revenue is what matters the most to these companies, right? So here we go with the actual player base slide that they introduced. It says the gaming world, 200 plus billion, right? So right now it says the 3 billion players, 200 plus billion dollars, right?
Yeah.
And they got 3 billion players, right? 4 billion internet users, and there's 8 billion people. So if you look at this slide video, you look at, okay, paid TV has been steady, like about the same, and it's on a decline right now. Newspapers and magazines is on a major decline. Music is actually a little bit on a decline, but it's been pretty steady. You have books have dropped and increasing again, but you got home video is about the same. It's cinema has had a major decline recently, partly because of theaters as
the
well.
Pandemic.
The pandemic influence.
If you look at that graph, it starts at 2020 there.
But look at video games, right? It is just bucking the trend of entertainment and taking off, and it's kind of showing that this is becoming more of the way that a lot of people are taking in their entertainment and transitioning into gaming as one of the main ways they entertain themselves, right? And so they see that, they see the growth. They don't want, okay, so they're looking at it, hey, we got to do something about Google and Apple here, right? Like, I think that's what it's all about at the end of the day. And this is why Phil said before numerous times that was their major competition. People point to Stadia shutting down as like Xbox is like killed Google out of gaming. Google is like massive in the gaming industry still because they have such a huge market share.
$1 trillion companies.
Yeah.
So
Google Play is what they're number 3 or 4 or something like that as far as overall revenue because of mobile.
Stadia, but they still have the Play Store. You know.
Yeah.
Like Google and Amazon, they're still big competitors. Like, despite Google's dropping Stadia, and honestly, they had so many. I wish I was in charge of Stadia, or just like someone who knows what they're doing.
Shut it down the day it launched.
If you were in charge of Stadia, you'd be jobless right now.
But no, I because Stadia had such a cool opportunity to, like, you have YouTube and you could make games like which they originally pitched it as, like, you can play games, like you see an ad of, like, let's say Fortnite or something, like, okay, well, you get my controller, I could play through YouTube, and that just sounds like a cool idea and a good way to compete.
It's kind of what Twitch does.
They just never really did it. But yeah, these are $1 trillion companies, and they like what the graph says, like, mobile is still the biggest market. Xbox is in last place. So I think a lot of these monopoly concerns don't really have any merit until you start seeing like that. I mean, that's basically why Xbox wants to get into the mobile space and why they are preparing for the future. And then I think Sony really thinks really short term. They try to make their money with the remasters. They why they're so concerned with the Call of Duty situation. Because they have not really been preparing, as far as I know, they have not really been prepared for where the industry is headed.
Yeah, they
like
have
Sony's
remasters. That's where the industry's headed, man.
Remaster.
It seems like Sony's projections are like 5 years out, whereas Microsoft's is like 10 and 20 years out.
Yeah, they talk about that.
Yeah.
They talk about that in interviews. It's funny you said that, Jasper, because they actually had a recent interview where they talk about they have like these levels where when they have these meetings, right? They have like a short term, a midterm, and like a long term outlook. And like the short term for them is like in the next like couple years, right? And then like the midterm is like the next 5 or so, and the long term is like 20, right? 10 to 20. And they talk about where they need to be, where they want to be at to get ahead of things. And you know, we never know what's going to happen 10 years from now in gaming, right? We can make a projection, we can guess. Obviously technology is always going to improve, and that's the one thing that has remained constant, so we can always take that into account. But 10 years ago, did we all think we'd be playing games on a subscription service like Game Pass and being able to have xCloud on mobile phones and devices, and be able to have cross progression on PC and Xbox, and cross saves and all of these different things that they're promoting within their ecosystem? That's all new stuff, right? And we couldn't have foreseen that, because 10 years ago we were just now getting the cloud, and we were only saving our game save files into it, right? And we were still like, a lot of us were on like 40 megabit internet connections at the time, or less. 25 if it was very popular. And you're like, okay, well, I don't foresee, like, whatever. Now a lot of us have gigabit, right? Or a lot of us have gigabit internet. Like, that's crazy. That's crazy to think, right? Fiber is being implemented more and more, and the whole infrastructure around the world is increasing. And mobile technology, just 5G. Like, I mean, all these different advancements.
There was always that like thing with the 360s, like, give me a disc changer, like a 5-slot disc changer, so I don't have to get up. But it's like, why would they do that when you can just download everything now?
Right. It's like, so yeah. And they say Microsoft kind of saw this coming, like, I think, or before, obviously Sony did, but they're in more of the tech industry, so they would have had more of an insight into this. You know what I mean? They knew where they were with the cloud and Azure and all these things.
Microsoft usually tends to innovate in a lot of areas.
Sometimes they're too soon.
Sometimes too soon.
Sometimes too late.
Sometimes too late. Like mobile hardware.
But I think this is like, it's a good moment. I think a lot of times they try to introduce the future, like, this is the future of where gaming should be.
Power of the cloud in 2013.
Power of the cloud.
You see this Crackdown destruction.
Like,
let's go.
No. Like, just go back to like when Xbox One was first released. A lot of the features they were trying to introduce to people are like industry standard now. Like,
the whole idea of Xbox One was ahead of its time. It's the one entertainment device that you need, where you can put your TVs, your music, your games all in one device. That was ahead of its time. Like,
yeah, the 360 I think was the first console that implemented a lot of that, right? Like, where you had all your apps built in right away. We all started watching Netflix on Xboxes for my house. That's the way it worked.
Yeah, it was pretty ahead of its time. But I think with Sony, I think they're scared about the impact of what Call of Duty and Game Pass, like Game Pass and Call of Duty is going to be pretty big, I think. And I think they see that coming. like what? You could play Call of Duty on Game Pass? Sure, sign me right up. Like, people, that's one of those franchises where a lot of people buy consoles for. Like, let me go to my friend's house and play Call of Duty. It's just a very it's a huge franchise, so a lot of people are not loyal to a brand necessarily. Now, brand does have power. My brand. Brand does have power, right? PlayStation is such a powerful brand name, like that is like the default that a lot of people just go to. But at the end of the day, a lot of gamers are not loyal to a specific brand. Like if they'll go to, I would like to think they go to where they can play Fortnite, where they can play Call of Duty, where they can play Minecraft and stuff. And once people realize over time that a lot of these games that Microsoft is sort of gobbling up over time, like Minecraft is the biggest franchise, Call of Duty is the biggest.
And a lot of those things, they have cross saves, so the brand loyalty doesn't even matter as much anymore because you can go to any device and play it.
True. And that's also like a benefit on Microsoft. Like let's say you want to stay on PlayStation or you have a mobile device. Microsoft is still basically offering that, and they're still making money. So they're it's like a win-win. If they put
if you want to switch, they win. If you don't want to switch, they win.
They win either way.
Right.
And Microsoft knows that. So that's where they are seeing into the future, where they're going to put these games on Game Pass for sure, but they're still going to put it on the competitor's platform. But people are going to see like, hey, I could get this on Game Pass for a subscription instead of paying $60-$70 for it, which is powerful in itself. So they are looking very long term. And Sony, it seems like they're looking. They're looking short term.
They're secretly behind the scenes. They're looking long term, but they're not forward facing about it at all right now. Because some of the moves they're making 3-bit is like live service games are kicking off with the acquisitions they made about PC ports and stuff. They acquired a mobile developer, right? They just launched their subscription service that's not currently competing with Game Pass. So it's like they're doing one thing behind the scenes, but then they're sending a different message forward to their audience with their current actions. So it's like they're trying to get the infrastructure ready for the new PlayStation, right? In the meantime, they're doing a lot of shitty stuff until that time comes by. That's what
they're trying to get funding. They're trying to get funding with all these so-called remakes they're putting out.
Yeah, we'll get into that. That's the next thing we're going to discuss, actually, because guess what? Maybe getting a remaster, remake, whatever it's called. Horizon Zero Dawn was just it was just.
I thought God of War Ragnarok was getting a remake.
That's next year. That's next year.
Yeah, that's next year.
Yeah, so Horizon Zero Dawn is the latest game that is being rumored that is going to get a remake. I don't know if the remake remaster, the way it's worded and talked about, it kind of leads you to think more of a remake than a remaster. And this game's only 5 years old.
Doing the Last of Us thing.
What I think of this is like Last of Us Part 1, right? When I think of the kind of talking that they're doing with the changes that they're maybe making with animations and stuff like that to bring it up to the current standards of Forbidden West. So I see Calorie says a leaked document says remaster, but that's actually what I think Last of Us Part 1 is. But they couldn't call Last of Us Part 1 a remaster because they already had a Last of Us 1 remaster. So they changed the word to remake and just maybe added a little.
Also, that word, I feel like people never know when to use remaster, remake,
that's true.
Whatever. So I think that's probably just a word they put in there.
So yeah, and like Ubisoft's like Splinter Cell remake, they said that okay, this is like a remake, and we think a remake is going a little bit further than a remaster, but when they describe it, it's like a reboot. You know what I mean? So it's like a whole new thing. And so like none of these people even in the industry know which words to use at times. But I mean, is this what people are asking for? Is 5-year-old games that currently run? And here's the thing: if you own a PS5, if you have PS Plus, you have Horizon Zero Dawn because it's part of the PS Plus collection
with the 60 frame.
It already has been updated. You get it to play it at 4K 60 because there was an update for that. Who is this for?
This is for to piss off the Bloodborne fans.
Yeah,
this is for. Okay, this is it's a smart move from Sony because they are making a TV show up for Horizon Zero Dawn. I believe it's
but the TV
for
show
that
will be out
same
before the game.
I mean, we'll see what they end up doing. Like, I feel like The Last of Us.
It probably won't take them that long.
Was for a new audience for the TV show, and it basically puts more money, and it's like a fluctuation of like the game to show. We know that works because Cyberpunk is a good example, where the TV show came out,
Didn't work
People
with
love
Halo.
the TV show on Netflix, Halo. The Cyberpunk came out, and people loved the show so much that it was a huge influx of players that went back to the game. And I think Sony is probably expecting the same with the Horizon Zero Dawn TV show that's in production. I think at Netflix. Someone could correct me if I'm wrong, but it's being produced, and I have a feeling they would want to coincide the remake of the TV show with the game. I don't think it doesn't need it's only 5 years old and it looks fine. Like I would love for them to put the resources into games that actually deserve to be remade, and I bet you they're going to charge $70.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Release an upgraded patch for it, you know?
Yeah, or just update it for free, like a lot of games are doing. But I guess that doesn't benefit them. But like, there's so many amazing PlayStation IPs, and it spits in a lot of PlayStation's fans'
How the
face.
fuck do they have a Twisted Metal TV show in the works and we don't have a game in like 15 years?
Yeah,
that's what I'm saying. That's what I posted.
It's like there's so many amazing PlayStation IPs, and as I feel like by saying like basically he whining about Call of Duty, like where's Call of Duty, and then keep doing like remakes and stuff. To me, it's disrespectful to the devs. Like, we're working on games too, and also it's just like kind of spitting in the fans of a lot of faces of PlayStation.
I think
who love
honestly, I kind of think the reason they're doing some of these remasters is just to say that they have games coming out, because I think their lineups kind of like they blew their load early this generation. I feel like
they did. They came fast.
Yeah, and so I'm thinking they're just kind of like taking the easy way out just to kind of fill some time slots in the year, and until they can get out to later in the generation to have more games out.
Yeah, because exactly they don't have anything announced for next year. Like Spider-Man's speculated. They have not said Spider-Man's coming out in 2023.
I think it said 2023 at the end of the trailer, but like you never know. I mean, a lot of things get delayed, right?
Yeah, I mean, they said the same thing with God of War Ragnarok for 2021, and it got delayed till this year. So you know what I mean. So if they need to have something else, they can't just have Spider-Man 2 and that's it for the entire year first party. They can do all the third party moves like Xbox is doing this year, because we didn't have anything first party up until pretty much the last we had Deathloop, and then we had Pentiment, and what are the As Dusk Falls.
As Dusk Falls.
Scorn. That's, I don't know. I think that's third party.
It's third party.
Yeah, it's third party.
Oh, you said first party.
First party, yeah. So first party, they're light. There was no AAA, but at the end of the day, if it's a fun game, AAA is just a budget, not the quality of the game. You can have a quality lower budget game. Look at As Dusk Falls. That was a really great game, low budget, but the story was phenomenal. And the graphics, it was like the slideshow type, how the story was foretold, but that went perfect for the game. So graphics and fidelity is not everything to an enjoyable game. So I definitely think that next year they don't have a lot. So they're like, what can we make fast and put out alongside with possibly Spider-Man 2? Like, well, how about let's remake Horizon Zero Dawn, because that's a game that, because they don't have to do too much because it's already 4K 60. So how much higher fidelity, like, are you going to use the animations from the second one? I mean, really they used the animations from the first one, so I don't know what this is really.
I think what they'll do, Psycho, is it's been rumored that Horizon is going to get multiplayer. So how they'll justify the $70 is probably
if it's 70. We don't know that yet, right?
It will probably be. I bet you it'll be 70.
But what about Last
add the
of Us
multiplayer
remake
on top of it? and then that will justify the cost.
I think the multiplayer will be almost like a separate thing, and like if you get it, like they'll bundle this in with it, and like it's an add-on, kind of like what they did with Spider-Man Miles Morales, right? Oh, if you buy Miles Morales, you get Spider-Man 1 remastered, right? As part of that, and you remember this, they made some of the changes, like
they didn't do that with like Ghost of Tsushima or anything.
Yeah, but the Ghost devs gave a free update to that, right? With the co-op,
$10.
But then there was an upgrade path for the remaster of it, or not a remaster,
the director's cut.
But then director's cut, right? Yeah,
it was $10.
So that was just the upgraded version. This isn't
better be a damn good multiplayer.
But this is like an older game than Ghost, so I don't think this is like an upgrade path on that. I think it's more of like a
so they can get away. They can get away with the argument of saying we don't have a campaign. We're launching a multiplayer only game. Here's the campaign as the first game.
Yeah, because I think they're going to do the same thing with like they did with Last of Us. They're like, "Ooh, people loved that we sold the campaign only, and we're going to come out with the multiplayer later down the road. Let's do that with Horizon. We've got a movie or a TV show coming up, so that'll tie in nice with that. We'll get revenue from that, and then we'll announce that there's a multiplayer coming. We'll show a still shot. People eat that shit up, and this would be great. We win, and I don't think truthfully, I think they should have came out with, I don't know, Twisted Metal or with the Sly Cooper.
PlayStation has
so many
IPs.
There's no Sly Cooper is such a dead IP. Like there's no reason to make that when they have Ratchet and Clank, which has a bigger name recognition.
But there's
Jack and Daxter.
Ratchet and Clank is still bigger than all those, just because it's more relevant.
But remaking games,
it's only relevant because they
looks
keep
good.
Making
like from 4 or 5 years ago, is just to me pointless because that game still looks great, and it's like
Last of Us Part 1 looked great. The remaster did.
Make a remake of a.
It's a money grab. Maybe they needed help funding. That's why they're doing this.
Well, I think Jasper's right onto something here with trying to fill in the gaps next, because we don't know a lot of the games for 2023 yet, right? We only know we only know that Spider-Man is supposed to be 2020. Spider-Man 2 is supposed to be 2023, and Forspoken, so we got some third-party games. You got like Final Fantasy 16 maybe next year, Forspoken maybe next year. And is there any other first parties that are announced for 2023 right now, like from them?
Not as of yet.
Okay, so
because Wolverine is going to be probably 2024 or later.
Right,
25 easily.
And so maybe the multiplayer component of this is one of the big reasons. Remember, they said there's 10 live service games coming, right? Yeah. Part of this also is, I think, an excuse to have that and be able to charge more for the multiplayer version, while still being able to promote this new live service game that they have potentially, if that's what it is. And I think they're going to be using the strength of their IPs to promote these live service games. Like Horizon Zero Dawn has a name. Horizon has a name, right? Last of Us has a name, and we know they're working on factions, right? Gran Turismo is already a live service game, right? So I think they're going to be turning their like big first party franchise IPs almost into like live service games that are going to have these multiplayer versions of them out there, right? And that's why they, instead of just including factions into part 1 remake or into part 2, they're doing this whole new thing so that they can create this whole new experience, right? And I think they're doing that with Horizon, but to create hype and more people willing to buy it, I think they're going to put some extra work into like remaking the first game a little bit, or remastering it, however, to kind of create more value for people within that. It seems, and then you got the show on top of it. It just seems like, okay, they're trying to use their IP now instead of create more new things, right? Mm-hmm. And they're been really heavy on that this last generation, right? Like this generation, the last generation, we got Ghost of Tsushima, we got Horizon, you got this
Spider-Man.
one, you got Spider-Man, you got the one sequel to Horizon, not Horizon, but to Last of Us. Then you got an Uncharted, you know what I mean? So like there was some continuing on some of these franchises, especially some of the newer ones, but it also had like a lot of new IP come out. You had Days Gone, even though it wasn't crazy successful. You had Death Stranding. as well, right? So you had a lot of things that people were like really getting into. Now it's like they've done all that work. They're going back and doubling down on all that, right? Instead of funding new things, right? Now they do have some like Returnal, obviously, and what all have they released so far that's like AAA this generation? They had
for PS5.
Well, they had was it Dark Souls? Not Dark Souls.
Demon Souls
Demon
remake,
Souls.
right? That's another
They had
remaster.
Miles Morales, but I mean, Miles Morales, I think, was one of their biggest ones, but that may be partly because of the bundle and the fact that it was a launch title type of thing.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of new IP.
New IP.
Returnal.
All-Star Destruction.
Destruction All Stars.
Destruction All Stars.
That was
Returnal and All Stars.
That's it. That's all new
Is
IP I think they had.
That can't be it. Hold on, let me look.
It's only they're not publishing Forspoken, right? Forspoken's going to end up going
Square.
everywhere, right?
That's,
So
yeah.
It
It's
may
just
not
a
go
third party
everywhere,
timed exclusive type of thing. I mean, they've had
it's going to be on PC day
that's-
one.
Astro's Playroom.
That's
well,
not a
they
new
had
IP
Godfall,
because they
but
already
that
had
was a
Astros on
third
PS4.
party.
The tech test.
Yeah, that's for the controller vibration.
Sackboy Abacab says, but that's part of Little Big Planet, right? But I guess you can kind of consider that a new IP in a way because it's a different kind of game, you know. It's interesting. I don't know. I mean, Wolverine's new, right? Not a new IP, but like a new game, right? That hasn't been done in a long time in a big way like this. Never in a big way like this. You know?
They're taking their most successful franchises that they've built over the PlayStation 4 generation and making those have some kind of multiplayer element so they can turn those into a live service so they can have like a continued revenue source of those games instead of just having $70 games come out every couple of years.
Horizon multiplayer, your Last of Us multiplayer, your Gran Turismo multiplayer, and then you're going to have some others. So Bungie's going to be a big part of this future as well, right?
Yeah, but you could probably sell that multiplayer for $70 on its own. Like, you don't even need to bother with the remake. Just focus on the multiplayer. Like, just imagine for now.
Then you get the Battlefield complaint where it's, you're only giving me a multiplayer game for $70. What is this bullshit? It's like,
I mean,
trust me, if they made it, if they made the Horizon multiplayer where it's like kind of like a Monster Hunter clone for the
I was
co-op.
thinking it was going to be more like an ARC where it's like a survival game where you create your own dude and try to fight other people and live through the dinosaurs.
I mean, you could have that for like the PvP aspect, or even have just the arenas, almost like what you have for like the battlegrounds or the testing grounds and stuff in the game currently. But just do like a Monster Hunter version of that, and people will spend the $70 on that. Just imagine doing co-op, hunting down, the robot T-Rex. That would sell on its own without even having to retouch, Horizon 1 at all. Like if anything, it would have made more sense to put Horizon 1 and Horizon 2 at like include the Horizon 1 up-res version with the bundles that you're doing. Because I mean, at that point, people would be more willing to spend the $550 or whatever if they're getting 2 Horizon games that are already, PS5 level type of deal.
I think it's harder to make some of those games live service like that. I think the bigger live service games, they usually have multiple people, where it's like if you do a Monster Hunter like kind of clone, it's going to be more of a co-op based, and those rarely like work for live service games. You want like more of a open world experience with lots of people, so you can have like your friends like just mess around with each other. Those kind of work better for live service, and they're usually more successful with less risk, I feel like. I don't know.
It could definitely work, but it just seems like there's so many other games. And although, Bloodborne didn't do the numbers that Horizon did, but then again, Horizon did numbers primarily because it was a bundled title as well. We can't forget that Breath of the Wild kind of killed that, just like Elden Ring killed the second one. I won't say killed it, but it definitely hurt their numbers. And then they started bundling it, so that's when that thing finally reached the 10 million mark. Before, it was like somewhere believed to be around 4 million or 5 million, which is still pretty respectable. But I mean, something like Bloodborne being a niche title when it came out, and now people are more towards those Souls-like games after Elden Ring. You could probably get 4 or 5 million in doing a remake, a full-on remake, much like they did with Demon Souls for Bloodborne. Like I'm pretty sure Demon Souls did 4 or 5 million because of it being a launch title. Like it's one of their more successful.
Yeah, but they had to put in work for
Bloodborne. So annoyed by remakes and the fact that you have Xbox like willingly like giving you these huge 4K
Bangers
updates, bangers.
Yeah, like Gears 5 came
For
out around the
free and-
same time as Horizon Zero. Well, even but Horizon Zero Dawn may be a little older than that. When did Gears 5 come out? Like 2018?
Yeah, I think 2018 for Gears 5.
Horizon Zero Dawn was 2017.
2019 for Gears 5.
Really?
Oh,
Okay.
yeah. Because people just have this expectation that whatever Sony is going to do, they're just going to charge for. Where in a lot of ways it could be just like a PC thing where you change the textures. People want to see a frame rate update and stuff like that.
And it's already got 4K 60. It's like
it's already got a PC launch as well.
So they're gonna do a 120 mode maybe, and then have like updated visuals. Probably
it's just an excuse to charge more for it when clearly it doesn't not need it, and then you just have like other studios, and not even just Xbox. You have like legit other game developers.
If it comes out next year, it'll be 6 years.
I actually wanted to touch on what 3-Bit said because there has been some game devs actually throwing shade at this, which I fucking found hilarious.
It'll be
in Exile.
Yeah.
Depending on when this comes out, though, I'm kind of like saying it may actually not be a bad idea because next year will be 6 years. If it comes out in 2024, it'll be 7 years. So, like, is 7 years too close for a remake or remaster?
Yes.
How about 32?
Because it's just like yes, yes.
It depends on
like,
how it holds up today.
Great.
If it's needed based on how the game is today, right? That's for me.
I think also there's a lot of technology changes in the game industry that have occurred with this generation that weren't necessarily with last generations. Like, does Horizon have ray tracing support? Does it have all these other features that are in modern games now? I don't know.
No, but you could add it with a patch. That's my point. Like you can literally add that.
3-Bit's right. You can add it with the patch.
And we've seen that already. We've seen games that are like, you know what? Here's a full-blown update for next gen version. It's free. Have fun with it. And I think Sony just likes the excuse of like, we're gonna add some voice acting. And then we're gonna charge you like the director's cut for like Ghost of Tsushima.
But
like,
a patching ray tracing in still wouldn't be as good as if you natively built the game with ray tracing in mind.
I mean, obviously, like if it's to me, it's just not needed. Like, especially if the game looks good and it's only like 5 years old.
Wait,
5
here's
years
the main
old is not
thing,
that
right?
old.
Can the PS5
I don't
do
even think
ray
there's
tracing?
ray tracing in Forbidden West.
Can it handle
That's why that's
ray
going to get
tracing?
remade in a couple years.
Here's the thing. Obviously, some people
So when
would think
Horizon
it's
Nemesis comes out, then they'll do the trilogy bundle and get a full $100 out of you.
But here's the thing. Like, I think that obviously some people would enjoy the new Horizon Zero Dawn, right? But if I am looking at, okay, PlayStation's got a limited amount of resources to fund a certain amount of projects and do different things, is that where you want them to invest, or would you rather them do something new, right? Or something different? And I personally don't feel like that's what most people are wanting them to make as opposed to something else. And that's the issue. Like, cool, you're going to update these games and resell them and all that kind of stuff, but couldn't those guys be working on something else? Like, Grounded was made by 10 people, right? You get, that's just one division of a larger studio, right? That was a new IP this generation as well. You know, you have Xbox actually has invested in a lot more new IP than PlayStation has so far that's been announced, right? There's a huge amount. And if I'm looking at these remasters and remakes, I'm like, why are they doing that instead of more of what we've been loving for so long? Because I already played that game once, and if I do go back to it now on PS5, it's already way better. You know what I mean? So I already get a way better experience. And guess what? I already automatically own it because I have a PS5 and I have PS Plus. So you gave it to me for free, right? So cool. You gave it to me for free. I got this update on it now where you unlocked, you doubled the frames.
It's also
so
the
now
Nintendo model.
It's just
It is.
not that
I don't
old.
like it. I don't like it.
It's not that old of a game. Like,
I mean, Nintendo does. If they release Skyward Sword on fucking 4 consoles in a row, like,
Yeah.
So
it's just like, I get it. It's money related. I'm just not a fan of it. Like, I would rather, if you are going to reboot a game or remake or whatever they want to call it, then do it to a game that actually deserves it. Not
Arkham
like 4 or
series,
5 years
fucking
ago.
hell, let's go update that shit. I mean, I know it's not them, but
SOCOM, Sly
Yeah,
Cooper,
SOCOM,
they have like a plethora of just IP like libraries. Like PlayStation has some of the most original IPs out there.
Dude,
And the fact that
Legend
they're
of
just
Dragoon?
remaking games like 3-4 years
yeah,
ago,
they could
like
even do smaller
constantly,
projects to kind of
I
test it
just-
out.
it's
You know?
crazy.
I just
to me.
feel like a lot of those that you just named are like they don't have the name brand anymore, so it's a risk for Sony, and I don't think Sony's willing to take risks.
Sony
right
is very
No,
risk
they do
adverse
not.
right now. That's for sure.
Yeah.
So I wanted
They
to get
do
into
not want to take risks.
True.
some of the shade that was thrown. So In Exile's one, the indirect shade. It was hilarious. They tweeted out, "Did you know Wasteland Remastered released 32 years after the original?" 32 years.
That was fantastic.
Not only did In Exile get in on it, but actual another developer, Mike Rose. This was
Yeah,
crazy.
dude.
So Mike Rose is he is with No More Robots, the publisher that do a lot of indie games. They have the Descenders. They just did the Let's Build a Zoo game that's on Xbox Game Pass right now. They also have what's the Soccer Story game coming out, I think. But he said didn't realize you could take a 5-year-old game, port it for a new console, call it a remaster, and he did remaster in quotes, and charge $70 all over again. We've stupidly been putting Descenders on next gen and making it free to people who bought last gen. We must be idiots.
Yeah, dude.
That's
That
a game
was
dev or a publisher. Like I mean, that's pretty crazy. That's like going out there and throwing some shade in a big way. So shout out to Mike Rose.
Yeah, I mean, again, I think it's all like Microsoft, PlayStation, they're all businesses, so they're in it to make money. And Jasper said something I do think about, like with Switch constantly just making ports, barely touching the game. It's like literally a port, like they don't upgrade it. The textures are the same, everything.
Because they use the same hardware, they just change the shape.
Yeah.
It's terrible. I like their approach. Like if you're gonna bring a game to a new console, and you are on x64, x86 architecture, then you naturally, this generation is different from other generations. If you are coming from the 360 to the Xbox One, those were two different architectures in that it was a little bit harder for a lot of developers to bring or change their games over. From Xbox One to Series X, it's pretty similar if they want to actually like update your game. So it's not even like a technology thing anymore. Like before it kind of was. It was pretty hard to port. So it's more so about money, whether or not they actually want to do it. I think a lot of these companies that are doing it for free, like people need to keep praising them. Like I would want that to still be the norm. Like when you have a PC and you have a crappy PC and then you get a better PC, do you rebuy the game? It has better graphics, not necessarily. You still have that amazing game, and then you are upgrading your tech. And I feel like that's how games should be going forward. Like you buy the game, you get the better tech, but you don't have to rebuy that game. It's all about like the hardware that you have. And I think Microsoft is doing the right approach by essentially like having whatever their first party games are, and they upgrade it. Cool. You get that for free pretty much. And it actually encourages a lot of people to jump into that game
or buy it if you haven't ever bought it before, right?
Or
like,
buy it.
Yeah.
Oh,
if I buy this game, it's gonna feel like new and not old, right? Without having a whole new game. It like still like that's one thing is one of my favorite things. I've talked about this numerous times about this generation is there's so many old games that feel way better now because they've gotten free updates or free patches. Horizon Zero Dawn is one of those, right? Horizon Zero Dawn is one of those this generation. You know, Last of Us was one as well. Like there's so many games that feel better, play better, smoother. They load a lot quicker. There's a lot of reasons to dive into some of these games because guess what? If it wasn't as great, last gen, if it had its issues, whatever, and you just had things holding us back, a lot of times these games are amazing now. Days Gone is a good example of that as well, right?
Yeah.
Like these games can be transformed already because of the hardware and just simple patches and updates. You don't have to completely make a whole new game and use all that resources and try and sell people who already bought the game originally a new game again. You know what I mean? And that's where it kind of falls off. Now the multiplayer thing, cool, right? I want PlayStation to get more into multiplayer stuff. Somebody mentioned Guardian Black mentioned Starhawk. That was huge for PlayStation back in the day. Remember when they tried to make MAG, that massive action game or whatever they called
like
it?
200 players or
Yes.
something.
Massive action gun game.
Massive
Yeah, I
flop.
played that game.
However, now the technology should be a lot better, and maybe you could do it in a better way, right? If you did bring back some of these IPs that Jasper says aren't important anymore because people don't care about them or whatever anymore because they lost their name, the younger audience doesn't even know what they are. A lot of them, right? Like SOCOM or Siphon Filter and stuff like that. If you were to bring those back and really have that multiplayer nailed down, it would make more sense necessarily than doing stuff on like some of your single player big franchises. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
You
but
have some
I
of
just
those.
don't think Sony wants to put in $200 million on a game that they don't think will sell.
What about Resistance or Killzone and really do it right this time? You know what I mean? Like,
Well, I
there's
think
so many
there's a
examples.
Twisted Metal one that's rumored to be in the works, but like, yeah, as far as okay, if Killzone is the one, go ahead and focus on that, or focus on Resistance. I don't know if they can get away with doing both and having that draw to it, but I think that spin of that, like World War II with aliens, with Resistance, I think would probably strike a chord this generation as far as something different than your Call of Duties that are out there.
They are like I think Jasper nailed it when he said they are whoever said it risk was it
Averse.
Risk averse, yeah.
Because I mean, just the more I think about it, I realize how safe Sony is getting throughout the generation. Just from like hearing you guys talk, like,
dude,
all those franchises that died off, all first person shooters, like they don't have any first person shooters right now. Any first party.
That's why they bought Bungie,
studio.
though. Like they do
That's why
technically
they
now,
bought
right?
Bungie. But technically, with Bungie, they now have a first person shooter. But even like what they're releasing with their output is pretty much a formula of the third person action adventure games that they keep like remastering. So I think in the future they want to change that up with their live service titles and stuff like that. But they it kind of just hit me when you guys were saying like when they're risk at like what is it? What do you guys
Risk adverse.
Risk adverse. It
Afraid
really
of taking risk.
with me because I do realize that they are being very safe with a lot of the games.
Yeah, and that's why I think they're turning their bigger name IPs into multiplayer franchises.
But
so
who's
they know
to
that
say those titles won't be successful again? I mean, you don't really know until
exactly.
That's why they're not doing it because they don't know if it's going to be successful. So.
Well, the thing that's funny is like with The Last of Us 1, did they even say how many copies they sold? I know there was the thing about the UK physical editions and stuff like that, and we saw the damages on like the Firefly edition. But normally, when Sony's full of themselves and they're like, "Oh yeah, we did 5 million copies in a weekend," have we heard any numbers?
All we heard was that Saints Row outsold it. I think.
But the thing is, if Last of Us and stuff like this are underperforming now, it takes a long time to turn $1 billion ship, so it's like we won't see these changes till like 5 years from now if they're seeing like, oh, well, these are underperforming, let's try to go back to some old stuff. It takes so long to turn that ship.
But somebody said on Twitter earlier, go ahead, Psycho, you're gonna say something.
No, I was going to agree with 3-bit. Like right now, Sony, this generation, they have we've seen them close down their Japanese studio, which baffles my mind that they've done that. And then they go and they only want to make AAA bangers, from what they said. AAA bangers, that they want the highest quality games. Well, that takes a lot of money. That's why they're putting their games at $70. But yet
making a game so you can sell it 3 times.
Exactly. We don't want a game. I get it why they're doing Horizon. It's a quick turnaround because there's least amount of effort put it in to be put into that game to actually, to get it out quick for next year. But what happened when PS1, PS2, they were risk takers when they were making Legends.
It's because they had
they were risk
competition.
takers,
It's
too.
because they had competition with Xbox, so they needed to compete. They needed to take risk.
The
Right now,
PS3
they feel
era,
like
they did. For sure.
yeah. Right now, they feel like they don't need to because they were on top
Well,
last gen. It's the same thing.
Well, guess what? Each generation's different,
That's the
and then
cocky
here
Sony
we
that-
are. Here we are now.
Yeah,
that
later this
Xbox is
generation,
fighting
you'll
back.
start seeing stuff.
Well,
probably.
yeah. When it's like towards the end of the generation, when the PS6, we'll start seeing new games, new IPs. They're like, oh, we're gonna build this game. It's gonna be for that console. But what about right now? I mean, they just don't want to take the risk because it's not gonna make them money. I get it, but your fans are out here wanting fun games to
Fans
play.
are not going to say. That's the thing. Like,
Well,
Sony has such a grip
zealots,
on
the crazy
but the media too.
fanboys.
Like
Yeah.
Sony has such a grip on the media as well.
Mhm.
Like you have like big names, like even Greg or I forget his name.
Greg
the
Miller.
guy. Greg
Jason
Miller
Schreier.
saying like,
Moriarty.
he like the post he made with Horizon Zero Dawn. He was like, oh, if you don't want it, then don't buy it, right? Like they'll just keep passing decisions that Sony makes, and I think people will keep doing that until you see a plethora of Xbox games, and when that sort of ripple comes of like when people realize how many studios Xbox really has, and when they have like a domino effect, I feel like that's when people will start to shift. But for
You're already
now,
seeing Sony take those steps, though, like buying smaller studios. Sony's taking those steps. It's just we
They
won't see
are.
that for a while.
like the small steps that they are
It-
taking, which I wouldn't say are risk,
It doesn't
they
help
are
doing these
buying.
remasters though when they could be doing something
Yeah.
else, right? Like that,
Yeah.
and that's the thing is like they could be doing other things. Not that I get the whole take. Well, just don't buy it if you don't want it. Well, that's not a great idea to have as a publisher. Something that a lot of people don't want. Like make something that people are going to want, like that people are
Do you know how
asking
many-
for.
But do you know how many gamers, Xbox gamers and PlayStation gamers, will lose their fucking mind if they announced a Twisted Metal remake?
Dude,
That
if they
I would do.
Twisted
I
Metal
would
and
lose my
Siphon Filter, I would go buy a PlayStation 5 today.
That's what I'm
Yeah.
saying. It's like they have IPs to be like, listen, we're bringing these out, and people will real excitement, not this. Oh, I'm excited for Horizon Zero Dawn remake. Yeah,
The thing is, there's so many new people into the gaming industry now that I think we kind of forget that, like, because we've always like grown up with it for 20, 30 years or however old you are. I think the majority of the market is probably like within the last 10 years in the gaming industry. So it's just they don't know those IPs.
But the people that are spending the money
at least you have that
the 30,
name
40-year-olds that remember
to
those games.
build up a new audience. Like I think the point of remakes and remasters is to find like it's already there, so you find a new audience. So I would think like by having a game that already has amazing stories, amazing like a good ground, that you can find that new audience and basically make however much money you want. But I think I mean Jasper's right where I don't know if they want to take that risk, but I think at the same time that's kind of what you're doing when you're saying I'm going to make a remake or remaster. You're saying I'm going to try and find a new audience. At least that seemed to be their point with Last of Us.
One thing is
But you
true
could do the
is
same thing with like the older game. Yeah, go ahead.
playing it safe has never worked in the gaming industry, right? It's never worked. It didn't work for Xbox. It didn't work for PlayStation. It didn't work for Nintendo. They in the past, the GameCube and systems like that didn't work. Playing it safe with going from the Wii to the Wii U. Playing it safe doesn't work all the time. It actually never really works. What works is the excitement people get when the enthusiasm, when there's exciting new things to really drive that hype level for the platform, and that permeates throughout the community and gets people talking and conversation going and stuff. And like we talk about like not being not taking risk, and they're kind of risk averse, and On Twitter earlier, there was somebody saying like, "What new IP is Xbox even making or whatever?" And it's like, what? And I saw this in a chat earlier today, actually, from somebody that I know. Like, Xbox doesn't really have any new IP. Okay, so we talked a little bit about the PlayStation, a new IP.
That's just Xbox's marketing, though, because I think a lot of people don't associate Bethesda and those kind of studios with Xbox, like In Exile, Obsidian. They don't associate that with Xbox.
We counted already how many of these new IP for PlayStation, right? Like, there's this generation already with Xbox. You've had Grounded, Pentiment is coming this year. You have, you also had As Dusk Falls. Contraband's been announced.
Starfield.
You have Starfield. You have Everwilds is one that we all know about. Then you have Redfall is another new IP. You have I mean, that's what had like already like
Avowed?
5 or 6 or something. You have Avowed, which Avowed people told me that doesn't count because it's part of the Pillars universe. I mean, come on, that's a little bit of a stretch right there. But if I don't count Sackboy as a new IP, then maybe I can't count Avowed as a new IP. I don't know. But like already we're at like 6 or 7 new IP just now, and then that doesn't count the new games from In Exile. That's probably going to be a new IP. From Compulsion, that's going to be a new IP.
Deathloop, Ghostwire Tokyo.
Deathloop was a new IP, and that technically that was released when they were under the umbrella of Xbox, even though it was a timed exclusive for PlayStation. You know, Tango has a second project. Tango Gameworks has a second project that's probably going to be a new IP. The ZeniMax Online Studios has a new IP that they're working on. There's like a plethora of new IP. Now they are also going back to franchises and bringing them back, like Perfect Dark and Fable and stuff like that, which is long dormant franchises that people have been asking for a long time as well.
You're also getting spin-offs and IP that we know, Minecraft Legends.
But what you don't see, and we're going to talk about one example of where we could see this. What we don't see is games that came out 5 years ago getting a new version. Right, a brand new marketed version to resell all over again. We don't see that, you know. And imagine that they announced that Gears 5 is getting a remake.
Or Recore.
Yay! Who the fuck would ask for that?
Recore.
Gears 5 come out.
Gears 5 was 2019. I think it was September 2019 or something like that when I looked.
Like a Gears collection
is
warranted for the fact that it would be the older games that are going to be up to today's standards. I think the only game that that has been announced actually as of today that's within the past couple of years that's getting a new version of it has to do with the actual publisher as opposed to Xbox themselves, and that's Outer Worlds. Because they're getting like a complete edition or something like that.
Yeah, that was going to be our next topic, man. Because that's a good segue.
I mean, for reference, because I was just curious. So if Horizon Zero Dawn is getting a remaster, there are some Xbox exclusives that were released in that same year. So that would be
Motorsports 7, and we're getting the remake this year for Motorsports.
Racing games don't count.
What if a Cuphead? That would be
that's
Cuphead getting a remaster.
Was that published by Microsoft or just a Game Pass studio?
I think it was published by Microsoft, but it was a third-party studio that made it.
So Ori would be one, like if they remade that Ori again.
Halo Wars 2.
Yeah.
What is it? Bleeding Edge?
But a lot of these games got free updates. Right? Like Halo Wars 4, Halo Wars 2 plays Halo Wars Tor. No, Halo Wars 2 plays at 60 frames on the Series X. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So those are the games that came out in 2017.
Recore.
Recore.
Yeah.
Recore plays. Have y'all played Recore on the Series X? It's a completely different fucking game. It seriously is. I mean, every single one of these games that we're mentioning play way better on a Xbox because a lot of them they did updates. One game they need to fix and do something with update Crackdown 3. Is that still playing at 30 frames? Do an update on that.
They ran.
I wish they could do something with Sunset Overdrive. Right? I don't know if they have control over doing anything with that or not, but
no, they gave up the rights on that.
So I don't. Can they not even update the original game? I don't know. Right?
They can't.
So certain games I would think make sense, but I would think they'd be more inclined to do an update than resell a new version of it, right? Now, where I wanted to get into what Fuzzy just brought up is because there's a chance this may actually be happening for Outer Worlds, right? So if we're calling out PlayStation on this, Outer Worlds, as rumored right now, to be getting a new version released, and I have the name of it somewhere right here. It's Space something. Let me find it.
Yeah, but is this like an anniversary or a director's cut edition of it, where they're going to add a few new things? It's kind of.
I
and we don't know who's publishing it either.
A director's. No, I think it's Take-Two is still publishing that one.
So here's the thing. So
Private Division.
This is a very interesting situation because last year, this is why I wanted to bring it up, because Idle Sloth, shout out to Idle Sloth, had tweeted out a job listing that he had found, that had it mentioned Outer Worlds on there for Take-Two, right? And Private Division, and it was like, why are they still mentioning that? Because they don't own the franchise anymore, right? They did publish the first game. Then also, last year in an earnings call, 2K, Take-Two had mentioned future Outer Worlds games. They're excited about the future of that franchise. Then they issued a statement the next day to an outlet saying, "Oh, we were mistaken. Actually, Microsoft has control over the future Outer Worlds franchise." Right now, this game, this Spacer's Choice Edition, we don't have a lot of information on it at all. This was from a leak, a rumor. It's not 100% yet, so take it with a grain of salt. But if this is an actual thing, then it's possible, because it's still the first game, that it could be published by Private Division, which would mean it would be like 2K, because they don't have control over the future of the franchise, trying to maximize the amount of profit they could still make off of the first game, right? By reselling another version of it or an enhanced version of it for current gen. Like, and that's Take-Two's model, right?
For it to be rated again, I feel like they would have to. The only reason it would be rated again would be because they have more they added content to it, so they would have to redo the rating process because they added something to it.
Yeah, they added the DLC. So like when you do a complete edition or a Game of the Year edition, you still have to get re-rated, even though the DLC was rated at the time of release, but because they're now combined under one title, because it comes up as a new SKU, that ties into the whole re-rating deal.
It technically counts, I guess.
Yeah, so let me read what the BGC had to say. Shout out to Idle Sloth for sharing this as well. Published by Private Division, The Outer Worlds was released for PS4, Xbox One, and PC in 2019 before making its way to Switch in June 2020. It has since received 2 narrative expansions, and which adds some 10 hours of playtime to the overall package. So it's possible the expansions will be included in the upcoming Spacer's Choice edition of the game. Microsoft, which acquired Obsidian in November 2018, had said it hopes to build the Outer Worlds into an enduring franchise, which we already know Outer Worlds 2 has already been announced as well, right? So that's going to be coming, but what we don't know, because of this job listing and because it's the first game, again, if Microsoft has control over being able to publish that edition of it, or if this will be Private Division and Take-Two maximizing profits and potentially trying to sell this as like a package deal again. So
I could already see this on multiple platforms. I think people can go back to the statements of Bethesda saying all legacy games, at least, will be going to other.
Yeah, this would be. It was rated for PS5.
Games already released.
Yeah, this was rated for the PS5,
the next gen console,
and Series X and S.
Yeah, so I think whatever game is already released for both Bethesda, Obsidian, whatever deals they made before, like let's say Deathloop, for example, is going to have some legendary edition in the future. It's going to be on PS5 and Xbox as well. Same thing with Ghostwire. If they make some special edition in the future, I could see that being on PS5. Any legacy game that's already been established on another console in some way or form, I can see that just being on the Xbox. But future, like Outer Worlds 2 or Ghostwire 2,
what's interesting though is they already have a bundle with the DLCs,
right? But not a next gen version.
Yeah.
They didn't update it to a Series XS or PS5 version. And because this is why I'm thinking if it's a space, this reeks of 2K.
Yeah.
Because it's okay, we're going to upgrade it and resell it to you, kind of like what PlayStation's doing, right? And I don't think Microsoft would do that. I think they would just give us a Series X and S patch and potentially even a PS5 patch, right? So it's interesting that this is happening. It also reminds me a little bit of what Bethesda did with the Skyrim Anniversary Edition, but that's a way older game, right? Where they added content onto that, which that's getting some controversy because it's $70 on Nintendo Switch. Which Microsoft got a lot of shit for that.
But if you already own the game, you can pay $10 to get your upgrade. So,
but it's also published by Nintendo on the Switch.
Yeah,
it's not published by Microsoft on the Switch. So if you're not happy with the $60 price tag and the $10 upcharge, you can talk to Nintendo about it, not Microsoft, right?
Well, there's a lot of people saying that is Bethesda. It is Bethesda that's doing that.
No,
and a lot of.
I mean, it's $60 for the regular edition. I think people admit that it's the special edition. That's
regardless. It's Nintendo's pricing, not Xbox.
Well, also Bethesda had to approve it, right? It's also, I mean,
that's what they were saying, that Nintendo, or that Bethesda approved it. Like, oh, why is it 70? And I'm like, well, technically, the game is 60 regularly, and if they're doing
do they have to approve it? Like
they had to approve that Nintendo could sell the bundle
they don't like publishers.
They don't set the price though. Yeah.
Publishers set the price. Like this is talked about by developers
Bethesda
all the time.
Can recommend a price, but Nintendo is the one that sets the price.
I mean, it's $40 on every other platform, right? Then it's $20 extra for the other edition right now, right? So
I feel like Microsoft doesn't say crap to Nintendo. Like I feel like Nintendo just does what they want, and Microsoft's like,
it's 60 on the Switch.
The regular version, the regular version is 40 everywhere else.
Yeah, so that I think that's why with the special edition, it was a $10 upgrade for all consoles. So if it's already 60, here's that $10. It's 70. I'd say I don't.
What they're complaining about is because it's 40 on Xbox, it's 40 on PlayStation, right? So they're like, why is it 60 on Switch and $10 more?
It shouldn't be even 60.
No, it should be. It should be lower. But that's on Nintendo. And people are using it as like a console war thing against Microsoft, saying like Microsoft's charging $70.
Also, why
Switch,
the fuck do people care if it's cheaper on PlayStation or Xbox? You already have a PlayStation, Xbox. Buy it there. Stop bitching.
That's what we were saying.
You guys don't even have a Switch.
So anyway, like it's just interesting, but like I think this Spacer's Choice again. I was thinking like no, like this is gonna be published by Microsoft, like obviously, but people are pointing stuff out to me, and maybe I'm thinking this is gonna be actually published by Private Division, and Outer Worlds 2 obviously would be Xbox, but I'm curious how this is gonna go over, right? When it launches, and people are gonna use that. Oh, see. Outer Worlds is getting a remake or a new version, and they're charging for that, and it's a Xbox
could actually
game.
This re-release could be cheaper than the bundle they have now, though.
It could be,
because the bundle they have now is $80 for both DLCs. So
if
it's 70 with next gen and the DLCs,
and it's Take-Two, so I don't know what they're gonna do, right? If it is,
I say it's 90. Because it's going to be $10 more than what the current bundle would be. So it Take-Two. I mean,
at least
if Take-Two is smart, they'll just charge the same 80. But
they'll charge 95 for just you questioning the price, Buzzy.
Got more questions? It's 100.
No, let me get
here 105.
Yeah. Really interesting thing that's happening though. Like I don't think this would be rated like y'all said, because if it was just an update, like an upgrade, like for free or whatever, I'm hoping there's an upgrade path at least, because if there's actually an upgrade path on this, I would actually potentially consider getting it. Like if I have the Outer Worlds on Game Pass already, could you pay like an extra $10 to $20 to get the upgraded version, even if it's published by 2K or Private Division or whatever? And I would think it'd be interesting. So anyways,
see if Microsoft's influence is felt through these published titles from other people, but
not to Take-Two.
So far, not
no, and not Ubisoft. Yet. Not really anybody, because they're all on the $70 train and stuff.
I mean, the only two examples are this Skyrim thing with Nintendo and Private Division, right? Unless you guys could think of like another example where.
Well, I mean, all of PlayStation's director's cuts where you pay $10 extra, or whatever, right?
I'm just talking about from Microsoft.
But
like,
those aren't
like
technically from Microsoft, even though they're Microsoft owned studios, because they're not published from Microsoft. It's not Microsoft's decision. They have no way of controlling that, right?
I mean, they own the IP, but I guess there's some exclusive. There's some contract with the first games, I'm guessing.
Private Division published Outer Worlds because when Xbox or Microsoft bought Obsidian, that game was already in the works and already had an existing contract, right? So when it released, it was still published by Private Division, and that's why
in the future version is still Private Division.
No,
like that contract doesn't.
Future games are now Microsoft. But this version is unclear right now, and because of what this is worded with this leak, makes me feel like it's maybe Private Division. So they may be able to do reiterations of the same game.
There could also have been a thing in the contract where like they said like Private Division will continue publishing this game for the next 2 years or whatever until the deal's fully through. So maybe the contract's about to end. Place in Private Division's like, hey, we can get another $7 out of people, so let's throw it out.
Yeah. It was a highly rated game. And I think they're just trying to maximize the value of what they have since they don't have control of the IP anymore. Let's do this and see if we can't resell some stuff. That's what it feels like right now, at least. So.
I think I think you're on to something with that because, like, if you look at and I think somebody had joked about it in the chat earlier with Sunset Overdrive. It'd be funny if Insomniac and PlayStation, since they now have the rights of that IP again, or that Microsoft gave it to them shortly after the purchase, if they release, Sunset Overdrive with the next gen update only for the PS5 type of thing, and charge $70 for it. So once you get the publishing rights, pretty much you're
Would it become
golden.
a banger then?
It'll become a banger only on PlayStation. It'll be like Metacritic is 105 on PlayStation and still something like 82 or whatever it was on Xbox. So
man. Well, hey, moving on, everybody. We've been talking about this game. We're talking about games coming back and IP coming back. Well, a game that's been absent for a little while, at least in a big way. It's kind of been a floundering franchise, I would say, is Need for Speed.
Well, they put one out every year when no one cares.
They used to put one out every year and nobody cared. And then they started doing it every couple years and then still nobody cared. This has been the longest it's been between Need for Speeds, I feel like now.
Yeah.
And this is like a big coming back for them. Criterion's been working on this game for a long time. And it was originally supposed to come out sooner, but a lot of Criterion moved to help on Battlefield 2042
and Battlefront.
And so then they came back and picked back up on Need for Speed. And I think there's an announcement coming tomorrow because the Need for Speed, shout out to, I think it was Tom Henderson pointed out that the Need for Speed actual Twitter account changed their name. EA tweeted out, it said, "Are you ready?" at Need for Speed. And we've already talked about this a couple times, but we thought this week there's going to be an announcement for the new Need for Speed. And it makes sense now because this game is rumored to be launching in December 2nd.
I think that's the same day as Callisto, isn't it?
It is. Calorie had actually pointed that out on Twitter and saying that maybe EA chose that because like Callisto Protocol is out that day and they're trying to mess with
Dead Space.
They're trying to mess with Glenn Schofield and his new company because they left and are now making a Dead Space clone, right? And so all that situation, right? So I found that very interesting. So this game though is coming out December 2nd supposedly, and we're gonna get an announcement. And the rumored name is Need for Speed Unbound. So
terrible name.
I agree. I think that's a bad name. Also, it's just not an exciting name. But we'll see. Maybe the game is gonna look awesome, right? Who would buy a new Need for Speed if it I'm looking forward to it personally.
Depends on what it looks like.
Yeah,
isn't there in same boat? Is this not I'll send it to you guys. Isn't this not a screenshot or is this old?
There's a lot of leaks or not.
There's no official screenshots out there.
Yeah,
there's just the rumor is that it's going to have some kind of interesting graphics and stuff within the game, kind of like anime-esque. Was what the language that Grub had used before when talking about this game. If I think this screenshot, it's the Need for Speed game reveal teased by EA. I think that's a screenshot just by
like one of them,
just one of the Need for Speeds that GameSpot put out there just to promote that it's Need for Speed. Yeah.
Because a lot of that looks like it's in Miami with the palm trees or something, but the leaks for the new Need for Speed have it kind of placed around Chicago because a lot of the leaks have centered around the bean that's in Chicago or whatever. That like statue, it's like a silver bean. I don't know. If you know Chicago, you know what I'm talking about.
But yeah, I see like Tom Henderson's shots on InsiderGaming.com has generic Need for Speed looking screenshots. We don't know where they're from, but I don't think those are actually from the game. Okay. So we'll see what it's going to be, but I'm excited. I think it's going to happen tomorrow. So
yeah,
look out for that. Right? Need for Speed's been absent since 2019, I think.
Yep, that's just looked. It's 2019 Need for Speed Heat.
Yeah, so it'll be 3 years between games, and this is, I think, the longest development cycle they've had on a Need for Speed in a long time. Because I don't think who developed Heat. Was that Criterion or was that somebody else? I think it was Ghost Games, right?
I don't know.
I think it was Ghost Games on that one.
So I think they've been working on this for a while, trying to bring Need for Speed back to life, right?
Those games, yeah.
Yep, they've pretty much put out the last like 3, skipped one, or no, they didn't skip. They put out the last 4 pretty much. Criterion helped with the 4th one, but
yeah, I think Ghost Games was kind of formed, if I remember right, to make Need for Speed games, and they just didn't really succeed, in my opinion. So we'll see. Maybe Need for Speed will come back in a big way. Stay tuned for information on that tomorrow, guys. I think it's going to happen tomorrow because they're really amping it up on Twitter right now.
Yeah, I think if they have kind of like that animation or that colorful graphics that you see for like the Street Fighter 6 mixed in it, like if you're drifting around the corner, kind of like what was rumored early on, that would be pretty cool. But
out of the footage I saw, it was like they like jumped some stairs and the car looked kind of heavy, kind of looked like a Burnout Paradise where the car's like the physics wise.
Well, that would make sense because that was Criterion.
Yeah.
Right. Criterion's famous for the Burnout series and franchise, and maybe they're going more of a fun route with Need for Speed. You know, like with the anime-esque type graphics that was talked about before. You know, I could foresee like more of a kind of over the top Need for Speed in a way. You know what I mean? So interesting. I can't wait. Was it nighttime or daytime with the leaked stuff you saw, Jasper?
It was daytime. It was I put it in the gaming chat like I don't know 2 months ago or whatever. It was like a 5-second video.
Yeah,
Okay.
The one with the wings and all that emoji shit.
I don't think so.
It was the one like a convertible. It was like a '57 Chevy convertible or something like that jumped on something or landed on.
Yeah, landed on a gazebo with the white wings.
The one I saw was like jumped up some stairs and like landed right in front of the bean.
Yeah,
that could be. Yeah, but it had like a graphic underneath it or something.
Yeah. All right. So the last thing I wanted to get into before tidbits, real quick, is we got more info about the possible Halo move to Unreal Engine. And this is interesting because this is getting interesting because ACG out there, he knows a lot of people and a lot of stuff out there. He had sources that also corroborated that there's some kind of move going on within Halo to Unreal Engine, right? Now nobody's clear on exactly what that means. Like, is it the franchise as a whole?
Or... I think it could just be that game of telephone where you hear it from someone, and it's just like it may be a small thing, like they're moving the menu to Unreal or something, like.
Right.
Because like if you bring it up in conversation, like we're gonna start moving the menus to Unreal or something, and then you tell like your friend that he's like, oh, they're moving Halo to Unreal, and then you tell the next guy he's like, Halo's coming to Unreal. It just gets lost in that translation. It's like you missed the menu part.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, when I first heard this, I was like, I'm gonna wait because it was one of those rumors where I was like, maybe because I've heard so many problems with the Slipspace engine. So like when we were talking about in our DMs and it was like you guys are all reacting to it. I was just like, huh, I'm just gonna wait because it's just one of those things where Slipspace has had so many issues, but it seems like it's so much work to try and put everything, the whole of Halo, on a whole other engine. I know it's
I
possible
couldn't
because at
foresee
the end of
them
the
moving
day,
all of Halo Infinite to a different
I
engine.
can't imagine that. I think like for example, the MCC collection uses Unreal.
Yeah.
They use Unreal for the armor customization. They use it for the menus. They use it to basically connect everything in the middle. So
Yeah.
it's like Unreal, and then it pretty much sends
When
it
you
out to
start
the
the
other
game, it
engine
goes back to Blam.
to start the game. Yeah.
Yeah.
So like Unreal is kind of in the middle. So maybe they would be using that experience for Infinite, because I think a major problem with Infinite is trying to churn out new content, and a lot of those issues reside in that sort of menu.
And if they're making a
sort of-
BR, they use that Unreal Engine to a connection between those two games.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, I think the BR mode that is supposedly being rumored, that's a good place to I guess try it out if you are going to use a new engine, or just keep using Slipspace for the game itself, and then everything connects to Unreal Engine. Like that way you can still have both. Like you could still technically use a Slipspace engine, you didn't waste your money. You can have the game be in Slipspace, but everything that connects to it, armor, like events, stuff like that, it connects to Unreal.
And
That way
yeah.
a lot of developers know how Unreal works, so I feel like that would be a good way to do it.
And that's you're like you said, that's one of the biggest hurdles they've had. And with maps, I don't know if they're going to have as many hurdles going forward after Forge. They're probably going to, in my guess, they're going to take advantage and put out with actual 343 built maps. They'll also probably do Forge maps also, as part of their content plans, which we already know they are, because Pit was just announced, right, as coming.
Yeah.
And they've already been showcasing some of these Forge maps on their devs interviews and stuff like that. So pipeline wise, I think it's going to get better for Infinite. I think some people are thinking this means like Infinite's they're just giving up on it and going to move on from Infinite and just start another new Halo game with Unreal. I'm not there yet. I think Infinite has a long life to go, and I think Slipspace is working with the gameplay aspect for sure within that game. So I don't see Infinite transitioning into that. And some people are also thinking maybe the new campaign content would be built in Unreal as opposed to Slipspace. But even
Well, that seems like
I
a
don't
spin-off take, like maybe.
It's gonna have a different feel. I want you to tackle this 3-bit, right? Okay.
But before that, I would say that Slipspace was built for this kind of Halo experience. So maybe it's not as easy in the back end to make menus and back end stuff for all those connections, and they know how to do it in Unreal. So it's easier and more time efficient for them to do it in that and just make Unreal work with Slipspace.
If a BR ran in Unreal, I wouldn't care because that's a different experience. You know what I mean? But like, I don't want a traditional Halo. I can't wrap my head around that right now.
I mean, I go back and forth of what they will end up doing. I do think the menu thing sounds the most reasonable in order for.
And I think it got lost in that telephone game.
I mean, all right. Here's the thing: Creative Assembly, they're really good at making maps.
Certain Affinity.
Sorry.
Yeah, they're hard to get confused. I do it all the
time. They're really good at Unreal. So I'm wondering if a lot of their process, as they were working on, as they're hired to work on Halo, I'm wondering if their process was like they saw the Slipspace engine, they're like, what the heck is this?
Well, they're used to working on Blam too, though, right? Because they've been making Halo content for a long time.
Yeah, but I'm wondering if a lot of the features got lost from Blam to Slipspace over time, and they were just working on it like, this is gonna take a lot longer than we anticipated. Is it possible for us to do something here? And maybe the consensus of that the guy's new position, I can't remember his name, but the guy who's like sort of heading a lot of
Brian.
what's his name? Brian.
Yeah, the one
I'm
that's
wondering.
he sat down with Skippy or whatever his name was.
Oh no, that's you're talking about Sketch, Brian Gerard.
Yeah,
That's just he's more of
Oh,
like
no,
a
no.
community guy. The guy that's
No,
taking
no,
over
Sketch.
343 is.
But I'm talking about the Asian guy, Brian.
Oh, he
No, I think
is.
he's a black guy.
That guy is taking over
you okay.
the like live service aspect of Halo Infinite.
Yes.
But there's another guy, and I can't remember, but he the guy that was in charge of Master Chief Collection is now in charge of 343.
Pierre or
Yeah,
something
that's
like
what I'm talking
Yeah,
about.
Pierre.
And
It's a
because
Pierre.
he was in charge of Master Chief Collection, and a big part of what was changed with the Master Chief Collection was actually Unreal, and then like making all those menus and everything work. Because when Master Chief Collection first came out, it was kind of a mess. I don't think it was as big of a mess.
It was broken for 5 years.
It was broken. Okay, it was broken, but he was a part of basically putting that together. And one of the things that made it work was actually Unreal. So I'm wondering if he's just taking what he learned with the Master Chief Collection and he's applying it to Halo Infinite and just being like, okay, a lot of these systems are broken, and what's broken about it is not the gameplay, it's everything that connects to the game.
In the back end.
The back end stuff is the thing they're clearly struggling with the most. It's not the game. The game is fine. It's them trying to put all the systems together to make it all work. And I think they would just want to connect that with Unreal, have the game in slip space, but have everything in the menus and all that customization work with slip space. Now that's not easy. Like, I know I made it sound very simple just by like, oh yeah, just put Unreal.
But maybe it's easier than building all that shit in slip space.
It could be. Slip space might be so broken to the point where it's worth it. But it's pretty difficult just based on my small knowledge of like engineering. Like, I'm not an engineer, right? That's not my field in game design. I'm very much on the art side, and then I stay away from the engineer. I'm like, you do you in your corner, right? From what my job position is, but what I do know is it's not easy. I think a lot of what two different engines, what they're gonna have to deal with is how to bring over a lot of the source code over onto Unreal. And Unreal does have a lot of good pipeline documentation for doing that. And it's one of the best engines to do that. They have probably the most documentation out of any engine I've ever seen, which is probably a good decision for them to move over. But still, moving that source code over is going to be a nightmare for them. I would not want that job. So good luck to the people. If this rumor is true, like, we still don't know if this rumor is true. At the end of the day, we're all speculating.
I think it's safe to say right now that there's something to do with Unreal and Halo going forward at this point, but we don't know what that is, right? But based on there's like Jez, you got this other guy, you have ACG, and everybody's been reporting that all their sources are saying similar stuff, right? That there's something here, but we don't know exactly what that is. I think a lot of people are jumping way too far to the conclusions on what it is, right? Like they're like abandoning ship on Halo Infinite, starting to develop on the new game right now, and because of the listing, the trademark
they've
of
been
the
working
endless
on the other Halo.
Do we trust the words out of 343? Like, they've lied to us over the past year.
Even if 343 said something right now and made a statement, it wouldn't even matter to me. But they had a thing today where they're talking about slip space, even still, and Forge and Halo Infinite and stuff, and like there's a lot. I don't think they're just abandoning ship on the engine for the core experience of what Halo Infinite is, because that would be even crazier. And I don't think they're just abandoning Halo Infinite because they have so much invested in it. And I think they can turn it around because they've seen themselves do it before with not just Halo with Master Chief Collection, but they've seen them do it with other franchises that they have.
They could also they've been trying to add these like story elements where you get these cutscenes. So maybe they're just like starting to put those cutscenes in Unreal. Maybe it's easier to build them through that than it is slip space, and then put them in the game that way. I don't know. Like,
yeah, who knows exactly what's going on, but there's something here. But personally, what I want to ask 3-Bit, and I know Psycho, you kind of have this concern too, right? If they were to move, or let's say they are making the new Halo game, let's say the conclusion that a lot of people are jumping to right now is, they're just going to do a couple more years of support on Halo Infinite, and then there's going to be a new Halo game. And let's say that new Halo game is Unreal Engine, and it's like a traditional Halo experience. Now, I'm all for other engines, Unreal, id Tech, whatever you want to do with all these different engines and different Halo experiences, right? But what I want to know from you, 3-Bit, because you have a little bit of at least knowledge with this stuff, and I'm asking for Psycho 2 a little bit here. Is it possible to capture the feel of the traditional Halo within Unreal Engine? Because when they said that they were moving to slip space from Blam, in an interview, they said that the reason they're doing that, because it was actually specifically asked, why not Unreal? They said because they were not able to get the feeling of Halo within Unreal. So was that just marketing speak to promote the slip space engine? Because it seems like to me, back in the day, if they were to make the decision, it would have been a much easier move to just move to Unreal at that time and to fund this whole development of a brand new engine. Obviously, they did that work for a reason, and their reasoning was that gameplay feel of Halo. So if that was the reason why they spent all this money to make a brand new engine, right? Instead of just you moving it into Unreal, like is that a concern potentially if they move it into Unreal for the next game?
Yes. But it's mostly because the Blam engine, they've had a long time to work with that engine. I mean, literally, I believe still the slip space engine is just a modified Blam engine that they've fine-tuned and everything. So a lot of that source code is still there of how the physics works when someone jumps and everything like that. The Unreal Engine, for the most part, what they would have to fight with is fighting the pre-existing conditions that's already
you would have to write
Unreal.
your own code for Unreal.
You have to write your own code. You have to write your own shaders, because there's stuff in Unreal that you look at it like, oh, that looks like Unreal, right? And so they have to fight those stuff. They have to fight and make sure those physics feel like Halo. Make sure those shaders that they're using completely custom shaders, so it looks like Halo, it feels like Halo. So that would be their biggest challenge. Is like Unreal, it has a specific look to it. You look at certain games, even with Jurassic style, and you could kind of tell it's Unreal. And it's not a bad thing. I think Unreal is an amazing engine. I think it's one of the best optimized engines out there. But if they did have to move over to a new engine, they would kind of just have to have some sort of gameplay up and reference what makes Halo Halo, and just really pay attention to the feeling of what it feels like in like Infinite, Halo 3, Halo 2, what made those games feel like Halo, and really just study that for the game on Unreal. I think it's possible. It's
and you don't even have to nail it, really. You can get close enough, because like every Halo's changed the feel over time. So it could just be a new Halo. It has a different feel.
Each Halo is different. Like I know a lot of people say like there's so many Halos and they're all
But it
the
still
same.
feels Halo.
Every Halo is
right?
different.
Yeah, but you just got to get close. You don't have to get 100%. You could just be like, it's stylized choice.
I don't know, man. I'm nervous it could be, because a lot of Unreal games feel kind of little like the same to me with certain aspects of the physics and stuff, the way they handle.
I just
don't want it to feel generic, like it's not Halo anymore. It's a shooter that looks like Halo, but it doesn't feel like Halo. The physics aren't like Halo. The way the movement feeling isn't like Halo. They can
bring some of that code over, man. Like it is possible. Like a lot of that code, it is possible to bring over to Unreal. Like Unreal uses what's called it's like a blueprint system Like if you're not too much of a scripter and you basically are connecting it's like the little bubbles and you basically are connecting those, and then they have like the coding like for like C++, for example. And the coding for Slipspace, I'm pretty sure uses C++. So they could technically drag some stuff over, but it's probably not going to be 100%. There's certain things that are probably just, they have specific code languages just for Slipspace that's not going to apply to Unreal.
Right.
And so that's stuff they have to like change in Unreal and do on their own. So they could bring some of the code over, I'm sure, but a lot of that code is probably just going to have to be completely redone. And I agree with you, Mav. I think a lot of Unreal games do feel or look similar. Like you could tell it's in Unreal. Like if you go from like Kingdom Hearts 3 to Hellblade, like there's like they're two different styles, but for some reason like they has this Unreal look to them. I think it's a genuine.
Yeah, there's a lot of devs that, or even gamers that can look to a game and be like, oh, that looks like it was made in Unreal, right? Like, and that's the thing. It's a legitimate thing. It's not like,
but it's possible to avoid that with art styles and stylized choices, and like the lighting engine really like plays a major factor into why people can identify Unreal. I feel like it's just like, so if you rewrite the whole lighting engine for Unreal and make it Halo code,
but then at that point, like that's a lot of work, right? That's what so you're basically making a whole modified ass Unreal Engine.
Yeah.
So that's
I mean, that's what they did with Slipspace. They just made
exactly. So why not just do it with Slipspace? Like that's what I'm. Yeah, because if you're modifying it, then that's I would assume that's going to.
But once you do that,
the rules and stuff, right?
The basis of the engine is there.
Yeah.
So like, if you change the lighting, whatever, but the documentation for Unreal, like thousands of developers have used Unreal. So if there's a problem in Unreal,
but not that modified version of Unreal, right? Like they're gonna have
the base,
right?
The core parts of Unreal is still there.
So
yeah, the basis of it.
I want to say, like Dread was talking in the chat. Shout out to Dreadpool. He said marketing speak that they didn't want to pay for Unreal 5 licensing. I disagree with that because they use we talked about
$1 trillion company.
they used Unreal Engine on Master Chief Collection with certain aspects. They use it for all their Gears games. They've funded games before where they actually wanted the devs to use Unreal, like Scalebound, and that they ended up getting canceled because they couldn't figure it out. Microsoft's huge proponents of the Unreal Engine, so I don't
more so than any other company.
So I don't think that they just didn't want to do Unreal for that reason. I think that they had to made that decision that cost them a lot of money to build up this engine for a legitimate reason, right? And that's what they said in an interview. So it just adds up to me that it was a potential concern. Now maybe they can get around it, maybe they can get it right. I don't know, but it seems like they, for some reason, weren't thinking that they could before, and that's what you remembered, right, Psycho?
Yeah, because it's with what we were hearing back when Slipspace was talking with Unreal possibly being used and then scratched and then gone to Slipspace, and that was the thing. Unreal didn't have that Halo feel. When we played the beta, I remember the first, like I was like, wow, this feels like old school Halo. It's like they went back to basics, and it just like felt really good, and that's why people are still clinging on to Halo. That they haven't moved on. Like look at a lot of games that just came out, and they're like, that are established franchises that they're like, you know what, this game, Battlefield, that almost died. So for this, the core of the game is solid, but I think if they go totally to Unreal, they might lose that, and they could new gamers like the younger crowd, they don't give two fucks, so they'd probably be all right with it. But the established hardcore Halo fans that love it since the beginning, they might be very upset because they lost what made Halo special. And I think that's what Microsoft doesn't want to lose that, so that's why they're up in air. That's why we don't know exactly what this rumor is. It could just be like the menus, as Jasper and 3-Bit were mentioning, because that's what they use in MCC. So if they go that route, so it's easier for development, armors, and new content, things like that. That'd be a positive, because then we get new content quicker because more people are able to work on it. And I just hope that is this case in this scenario, and they're not totally scrapping slip space for Unreal 5. I mean, it'll look gorgeous, but I don't know. The physics aspect of Halo is what I liked.
It's kind of what makes Halo, right?
I just don't know if that's actually that big of a deal, to be honest. Like,
well, you're 26.
Bitch, Halo's my favorite game. I've played them all. I played Halo 3 like last week.
You have Halo statues in your bag.
Yeah. I just like, if you look at like Halo 1 compared to like Halo 5, it feels so different. Like, you say the Halo feel, but like Halo 5 has mantling. It's just like, I think it's just based off like how they present the game. Like, if they present it as like it's a new mechanical changes, like people accept it or whatever. It's just, I don't know.
Well, I think people are just scared, Jeff, because it's been the same engine since Halo 1, technically. Like, Slip Space is technically a new engine.
But, I think movement speeds and stuff feel different in certain aspects, but not the overall like
Halo 5
feel.
movement speed is so much faster than like Halo 1. And that's where like this Halo feels a lot more like the old ones, because they slowed down the movement speed and put sprint as an automatic feature, so it feels fast, but it's also slow.
Yeah, well, I mean, I don't disagree with you. I just think, I think it's possible. I just know, like, with engines, that engines are basically the house where you can hold all your tech and everything, and you could kind of make whatever you want with Unreal. You can make any type of really game that you want with Unreal. You can make MMO, you can make first-person shooter, RPG, third-person. Engines are just sort of like the tool that helps you get the job done.
Yeah.
So technically, you could make a game that's exactly like Halo Infinite in Unreal. You just have to battle with basically the code and making it feel different. You're basically battling against the standard of
built in. Yeah,
what's already built in, and you really want to just make a lot of custom things within the engine, but really it's just a tool that helps you create whatever you want. Like the photo, like you have Photoshop, or you go on Twitter to message people. It's just like,
but
the
also
thing
like Infinite's art style is like, it changed from like 5 was more realistic. This is kind of more like artsy. I don't know, like cartoonish.
I don't care even about the look. It's for me, it's just about how it feels when you have the control in your hands.
But that's part of it. Like the look in your brain kind of tricks you to be like, oh, it feels different because of the look. It's a whole
thing.
And
if you look at a lot of level designers for Infinite, look at their portfolio. They are using Unreal, which is interesting, right? Like I encourage a lot of people to go and look at like level designers of 343 and look at their portfolio. And for the most part, a lot of these level designers are using Unreal to get hired. And then they have to like change once they're at 343, use Slip Space. But so I think a lot of developers are just naturally into Unreal, so maybe they'll just make it easier.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense for a lot of reasons. It's a great engine, and all those reasons make sense, unless it doesn't feel like Halo anymore.
The major thing that like a lot of people don't understand is like when you develop a gun in a game, most of the way the gun feels is based off the sound. Like that's like 90% of the way the gun feels when you perceive it. If it has like a weighty punch to it, that means like you perceive it as like a strong gun. So like sound design, art design,
certain engines across the board, man. I think a lot of guns in the games that are in certain engines feel like they came from that engine. Like Apex engine, a lot of the guns in those games feel like they're Apex engine guns. A lot of the like Unreal games, like although most of them are third person, there's not as many first person games anymore in Unreal, but like there's a lot of these things where it's like, oh, I can identify that feels like that, right? Like Arcane games are all made in the same. What engine are they using? I don't even know.
Well, that's
but like
because they are the same publisher. But like if you start putting it across publishers, that's when they all feel different. Like
maybe we'll see. Here's the thing. I'm not gonna shit on it if it happens, right? Yeah, like
Fortnite and Gears feels different, and that's games in the same engine.
Yeah,
right. But they both can. You can kind of tell that they're in Unreal.
Yeah,
I mean, you can. Like
you can.
Right. So so I'm not gonna shit on it if it happens. I'm gonna give it an open chance. Like if Halo 6 or whatever Halo 7, whatever the next Halo game is, if it's Unreal, I'm gonna give it a chance. I'm just saying I have a little bit of concern that it will be the most different feeling Halo than we've ever had. And that may not be a good thing for the traditional Halo fans that are looking and are addicted to that gameplay. Right? You keep trying to say something.
I want
Psycho.
more Halo spin-off. So sorry. Go ahead.
You were going to say something, Psycho?
Or Psycho? One of you.
I think I was going to try to say is that, like with this art style, it kind of gives me they kind of like trying to blend in like Halo combat involved with that kind of like very bright coloring, and then kind of somewhat realistic with his armoring, and with the feel it was more like Halo 3. So they're trying to go and blend a lot of different aspects of Halo into Infinite, and it just, like I said, it just felt really good. So for them to change, like, I just hope they don't change it for me, because I'm just a stubborn old gamer, and I'd love how Halo feels and plays like. That's all.
Yeah. What about you, Fuzz? You don't care.
I'm kind of indifferent. Like for me, I can feel the differences between Halo and what do you call it? Destiny. Even though it's one of the, well, they're kind of like off of the same engine derivatives. It's just that they've kind of grown into different directions slightly. And I love the gun feel of Destiny more so than Halo. But then again, part of it is some of the mechanics of the game itself in comparison.
Destiny's like in the same engine pretty much as Halo. It's just a modified Blam engine.
Yeah. So and there's like a faster, more fluid feel, at least to me, with Destiny than there is with Halo. But Halo has like it's solid. It's as far as movement, it's solid as far as gun control. It's just that I think you're jumping or sprinting and things like that for Destiny to me just feels just slightly more fluid. But I think some of it is the visual aspect of it, whether it be some of the visual effects or things along those lines. But
powers and stuff.
Yeah, so I would hope that they can keep the same feel with Halo if they do a full switch out to the engine, Unreal Engine. But I'm willing to give it a try either way you look at it. It's just a matter of, as long as they keep the sounds and the look consistent, I would say it's fine. Although I would kind of prefer more of like the Halo 5 sort of semi-real wear and tear look.
The look, yes, but I thought you were going to say
the look of it to me, I think, was because that look kind of was more coinciding with what I see in Destiny, as far as like, okay, if you have metal and cloth or other materials, there is a bit of wear and tear look, or has a more current or modern, realistic look to it. So for
Halo
me,
Infinite feels like has like a slight shell shading or something to it. I don't know. It's weird.
Right. Yeah, and to me, it's fine the way it is, but more realistic, kind of like, and I know I'll probably get looked at sideways for this as well, even with Anthem, because they had the different ranges of wear and tear on the material as far as your armor, something along those lines, where you can see battle worn gear.
I think that's a good example, because that's Frostbite. That's the same thing as Battlefield and Madden, and all those games feel different.
Yeah. So
all the Battlefield games feel the same to me.
No, Battlefield 2042 feels like shit.
And it still has an overall Battlefield.
I don't think they'll change engines. I'll just say that I don't think they're changing engines maybe for a newer Halo, that which was the kind of discussion, and maybe just for the menus. I don't think anything but after that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
But
We'll see. I don't know. I
we'll
just
see.
wanted your input on it because, like, you have more knowledge on game development than any of us.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm basing that off of what they did with MCC. I'm basing off of the guy who's now in charge. Like he now of what he did to fix MCC was largely based in Unreal and the menus. So I'm kind of basing it off of that, and also it just makes sense. Like the game is already there in Slipspace, so just use what's already there, and just use Unreal for the menus as a way to connect everything. And that's your problem anyways with Slipspace. It seems to be the back end stuff, so use Unreal for the back end stuff. I mean, that to me just makes the most sense if you are going to switch to Unreal, or for future titles to avoid all of the Slipspace nonsense. Just go to Unreal.
It's just those little nuances, like the weighty feel of it, how like the movement, these little aspects that like it's hard to put a real replicate. Like yes, you can recreate the same look 100%, build it all over again, right? Like, and have it like make it difficult. Which one is Unreal? Which one's Slipspace? Probably, you know what I mean? Like, oh, I don't know, I can't tell, right? But like when you move the thumbstick and the way the character moves when you jump, how it feels, the weight when you land, how a grenade explodes, right? How the grenade bounces off of the ground, the feeling of pulling the trigger, the impact that it has on the enemy player, and that feeling is a big part of shooters as well. Like Call of Duty has a very specific feeling with that. Battlefield has a specific feeling with that. Halo has a specific feeling with that, right? Like all these little tiny nuances that we don't really think about overall add up to a specific way a game feels, and those have carried over from game to game to game because they've been built on a lot of the same tech, right? And when you're trying to build that from scratch again now, right, to try and mimic something else that's already been that for a long time,
do your homework.
How will that process go, right? Because it's all good as long and I'm talking about a core Halo experience. I'm not talking about spin-offs or different things. I want them to experiment with Halo and do all these different things in different engines and like all these different things. I want more exploration in the universe and to have more spin-off type experiences in all these different engines. But if you're making like a traditional Halo game following the Master Chief storyline, right? And you have the arena style gameplay and all of that, and if it were to switch over potentially
for Halo 7 or whatever,
for Halo 7, right? That would be a slight concern for me that it's going to not feel like Halo anymore.
It would just feel like a different Halo. That's because Halo.
I don't know. Like we'll see. I think I'm a little too worried about it, and I think you're a little overconfident with it. I think somewhere in between. Like I don't know. Obviously, because if it was just that easy, then that's what they would have done last time, and they didn't. Because they talked about that, like specifically, if it was that simple, then they would have just done that. I just don't think they
spent enough time with Unreal to do it, to be honest.
Like, I don't know, it's the most popular engine out there, like
I don't know what was in those conversations, because I do know if you look at the old interview with Bonnie Ross and Ryan McCaffrey, Bonnie Ross was saying like
she was asked that specific question. Why not Unreal?
She was asked that specific question, and she was saying that the team for a while wanted to switch engines, or at least update the engine, and that they didn't have enough time with Halo 5, and then she got a lot of backlash inside of the studio because she didn't do that. And then she was like, okay, for the next Halo, we are for sure doing it, because basically they've been putting it off internally as a studio. And then when Infinite came out, well, we have seen that it's still giving them some issues. Like, yes, the graphics are great and the gameplay feels amazing, but it seems like Civ Space still needs at least 4 to 5 more years of just
development.
Development,
right.
yeah, for it to be what it truly is meant to be. So whether or not they put all that money into it, because engines just take a long time, they're complicated. Whether or not they put that development time into it,
I would just hate they wouldn't take the easy way out and sacrifice the feeling of Halo.
Yeah, or do they take the easy way out and just use
which would have been using Unreal? That would have been the easy way out last time.
Yeah,
everybody knows Unreal gaming. Game devs know Unreal.
Literally the whole
gaming industry for development wise knows Unreal except for Platinum Games.
See, I think they probably spent like a year or so building like tests for Unreal, and then they was like, we can't get it to feel right. But if they took the time to add that code from Halo to Unreal, they could have eventually got there. It's just they probably was like, oh, that's going to take longer than if we just edit Blam.
But they already have the code.
Yeah.
We'll see. It'll be interesting to see what happens with the future of Halo. I'm still going to be a Halo fan regardless because I'm addicted to the universe and the stories and everything. I just a little concerned, but overall, maybe it'll be for the good.
At the end of the day, they trick you and be like, we're just changing the movement system or some shit. They'll do something like that.
We're going to use Unreal, the Unreal physics stuff. Well, guys, we got to move on. And that was, we're already running long. And that was great conversation. So, hey, there's only one thing left to do here on Fun Speculation Podcast. Guess what time it is? It's time for... Yo, everybody! Thanks for tuning in.
I almost pulled it off.
You almost pulled what off?
Oh, oops, we're live. Sorry, never mind.
No, you're okay. Wow, everybody! This is the segment on Fun Speculation Podcast called Tidbits, where we look ahead at the week in games, and we're going to take a look at the games releasing this week, which has some pretty cool games in here. And we're going to start off with this game. I'm going to bring it up here, and we'll see if anybody's excited for it. And we'll see here. This game is releasing on... Do you have the release dates, Fuzz?
Oh, for the first one, it should be October, or this Tuesday, or tomorrow. Well, technically later today, October 4th.
Okay, right on. And this is Dakar Desert Valley. Dakar Desert Valley. And is this in Game Pass or no?
I don't think it is.
I just saw the Xbox logo. I didn't know if they had marketing rights or whatever. I've never heard of this franchise. This is a new franchise?
Not exactly. Like they had like Dakar 18, and they had Dakar, like a different rally Dakar thing earlier on, but this is like their kind of like reboot to some extent, where they're doing more than just the rally cars. They're doing the trucks and things like that too. Oh, fun side note, this is similar to the new electric rally vehicle that's in Horizon 5 as well.
Oh, okay. And it's coming on everything, like Psycho.
Coming on everything.
Sorry. So that's coming on everything. It's $40, and it's PS4, PS5, Xbox One, XS, Switch, PC. Next up is a brand new Overwatch. Wow. Finally. It's brand new, right?
Yeah. Kinda.
Yeah.
Overwatch 2.
Faith alone.
This will be an Xbox franchise. Still crazy.
I'm stronger than you think. The Overwatch I joined was about...
This is free to play.
They can give the people hope again.
Are we playing the age game in chat right now?
Let the Kitsune guide you.
Overwatch is freaking dope. I just need people to play with.
I'll play it with you.
I think you started playing with me.
Yeah, we did a little bit.
With these upgrades, they don't stand a chance.
I could be pushing something right now.
I think
Is
what
this gonna
discouraged
be-
me is the fact that I've had all this progress on my PC and it didn't go over.
Right. Is this going to be a return to glory for Overwatch?
The dragon and I are one.
It's going to catch on like last time?
Some of the old,
Well, they shut down the servers for the first one. You have to play this one.
That's true.
I'm back.
You back?
So if you, I mean, all your stuff could transfer over, all your skins. And...
I'm pretty sure I downloaded the update today. They literally just updated Overwatch 1 copy and changed it to Overwatch 2.
Really?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty much Overwatch 1.
Unless if I downloaded something else and they changed the cover on it for no reason.
Okay.
I mean, your skin, you still have the same skins and stuff. So
Yeah.
It's pretty much Overwatch 1.
Yeah, they didn't. This carried over everything from the first game. This is Death vs. Let It Die. Yo, yeah, Psycho.
Did they add campaign to 2?
They have hero missions or some shit. So
Yeah.
Okay, never mind.
it's probably, I think it's missions that just take place on the multiplayer level. So not too much of a campaign, but
You get a crew or something.
Timefall 1.
yeah.
Yeah, it's October 4th. And for anybody looking forward to playing Overwatch 2. This next one is Death vs. Let It Die on PC. Didn't this launch for PS5 last week?
Yeah. And I don't hear anybody on Twitter playing it.
It's a banger.
Yeah.
I was halfway tempted to download it on PS5 earlier today, but it's like
Is it free to play?
I have like
Yes.
70 or 80 people on PlayStation, and only one person is playing it.
This is maybe this has a better chance on PC.
Doubt it.
Yeah, this might be doomed to fail. I don't know.
It's
Hope not.
Destruction All Stars without the car. Simple.
You would
That's
think it would make more sense to release this on Xbox, where a lot of people play more multiplayer.
Exclusive.
if I'm not mistaken, this is a game that is successful in the East.
Okay.
But I guess PlayStation was looking for
Well, that's
something
really
that's
cool.
multiplayer-ish until they get their games as a service, ready for launch.
Right. Interesting.
I would play this. This looks dope.
We already watched this last week, so it's like there's a different trailer. I feel
did?
like, yeah.
Yeah, I
You
think
saw
so.
this last time?
Yeah, it's slightly different trail. Like I think this is a slightly newer one or an update, but yeah, like I said, 80 people on PlayStation, one person playing.
Near
Then again, these
Automata.
are the same individuals that don't play Ghost of Tsushima raids or anything either. So.
This is making its way to Switch. $40.
Now, with an android squad called Yorha, the human
This was a very highly
I'm kinda
rated
surprised
loved
it
game
came to
last week.
Xbox
So
first.
The graphics are very 360. They're not too bad.
a battle android 2B, and a scanner android 9S.
Yeah, it's amazing how Switch
Are
does that
key
with the
members
trailers.
Of this squad.
I don't know if this is native or if this is streamed.
Is it
I can't
cloud-based?
remember. I think it
What
is.
will come of this bloodless battle?
They may say it in the trailer.
Yeah, like the Resident Evil games, I think they had said Resident Evil Cloud or whatever.
This version of the award-winning
Yeah.
Nier Automata comes with previously released content, including additional modes and costumes. New costumes exclusive to the Nintendo Switch version will also be available at launch. Reclaim
It's native, Alvin says. It was a. I didn't finish it, but I really enjoyed what I played of the game.
Pre-orders begin today on Nintendo eShop.
Of Nier?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I didn't get into the sequel, though. There was a one that came out this generation already, right? I feel like.
I don't know.
Yeah, I think that's the one with a whole bunch of numbers, but I thought it was kind of like a prequel instead of a
Maybe,
sequel
yeah.
or something.
Let's see. What's next? So that releases on Thursday the 6th. This next one is No Man's Sky, making its way to Switch. More games making their way to Switch. I'm surprised this didn't come out on the Switch a long time ago, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
I thought it did for some reason.
Guess not. It's $60.
Yeah.
It releases Friday the 7th.
I think there's another patch coming along with this where there's some sort of mode update for all the others that's going to be included on this one for Switch. I can't remember what they're doing different.
There's so much content in No Man's Sky.
Yeah. Keep adding stuff.
Yeah. But
I don't recommend anybody watch me try and stream this game. Last time I was getting frustrated as a learning experience. I started getting the hang of it towards the end. It's like I had to relearn the controls in the middle of the game without any tutorials because it'd been so damn long playing it, and I just couldn't remember how to do anything.
it's like a good buffer game if you're waiting for Star Citizen.
You can ride a butterfly now.
I mean, Star Citizen looks a lot better.
Is Star Citizen actually going to come out? I mean, are you talking about Starfield?
That's a tough question.
Artist Star Citizen is already out.
I think Star Citizen is just basically going to remain in PC preview for pretty much the life of the game.
They just
It's
raised
one of
over
the most
500 million.
funded
or something
games
like that.
ever made. But
500 million for, oh my god.
it has a lot of cool features in it right now, which is nice. But like,
Now this is this next game. This is a legit one.
LOL, surprise!
It's an Overcooked knockoff with LOL dolls.
LOL surprise BB's.
Hey, ripped off Overcooked.
My daughter,
BB's Born to Travel.
my daughter used to be obsessed with LOL dolls. Like we had so many of them. She had rare ones and all this stuff. I was like, it was like every time we went out, we had to try and get LOL dolls.
I hate it. Their eyes are so creepy.
This toy line like caught the young girls like toy market by storm. It just took off like crazy. This was like probably like 6-7 years ago when it really started.
I can't believe you put this game on the list.
Yeah, it came out this
Game
week.
Informer missed it.
Yeah, Game Informer missed it. Jasper sent it to us. So that's $40 coming on the 7th. If you got a young child that would like to play that game, it's could be fun, especially if you like Overcooked. I hope it's not as hard as Overcooked, because if it's as hard as Overcooked,
you seen those people in the line? They were like, "I want my food now. I want my food now." Yeah, so who knows?
Yeah, like Overcooked can be fucking maniacal, bro. Like that game is no joke. It gets
I
hard.
cannot beat the second one. Beat the first one though. Second one's ridiculous.
Yeah. But hey, that's it for tidbits, guys. Not a lot of games this week. There's a lot more last week.
What about Scorn? Isn't
That's 14.
Later this month.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
We're not doing the month. We're doing the week.
Yeah. The week.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we'll do Scorn will be. We'll talk about that.
That would be long
next week.
dates.
Yeah.
No,
well, everybody, thanks for tuning into the show. I saw lots of awesome people hanging out for the show. This chat and community is again like absolutely amazing. All the support you show means a lot to me, and I know a lot of other people here within our group. So appreciate you guys. Well, let's get everybody out of here. Psychonauts, bro. Good to have you back, dude. Like I said, and tell everybody where they can find you when you're not banging the drums.
Exactly. Chat, you guys are fantastic. Thanks for coming out. Always bringing great energy. 3-bit, it's awesome to have you on. Do a show. It's been a while, brother. So it's always fun to have you on. Jasper and Fuzzy Mav, you guys are fantastic. Even though when we don't agree on things, it don't matter because we're friends at the end of the day. So everyone, yeah, exactly. Everybody, you find me Psychonauts8 on social media everywhere, Xbox, and here Mondays on FSP at 10 o'clock and Fridays, as always, Xbox Ultimate at 9 o'clock with the Ultimate panel. So many people, and I don't know if we're gonna have a guest this week, but it's gonna be a great time.
Right on, man. Appreciate you as always, Psycho. Hey, Jasper, the realist, Lord Master Jasper. Where can everybody find you, bro?
Yo, check me out on Twitter at Lord Jasper. I tweet maybe once every month. Check that out, and check out my YouTube channel, Lord Master Jasper. It's slowly growing, slowly putting out a little more content every now and then. That's always fun. And then FSP, like Psycho said, and Xbox Ultimate, like he said. Check those shows out. So I'm also on that. So.
Right on, man. Appreciate you. Fuzzy, the always fuzzy one. Where can everybody find you, sir?
Just had fun tonight with you guys. Thanks for having me on. Everybody in the chat, thank you guys for joining us and hanging out with us. For anybody who wants to hear my ramblings on gaming, just follow me on Twitter at fuzzy_Belvedere. You can also find me on Xbox Ultimate on Fridays at 9 p.m. And Chop Podcasts on Saturday on PTK Blam's channel at 9 p.m. Eastern Time. And then right back here on FSP at 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Fun Speculations channel.
Right on, man. And what about you, the amazingly talented 3-bit?
Everyone can follow me on Twitter at i3bit. I'm on this show. Sometimes make pop-up appearances on Ultimate. I'm working on a lot behind the scenes, and I really would love to show you guys one day. But that's pretty much where you guys can follow me. Thanks for the amazing topics put together by Fuzzy, Mav, and I think Jasper put some together too. But it's awesome conversations. I only get like a week, like 1 or 2 shows to get to talk about some of this stuff. So amazing topics. Everybody in chat, Dreadpool, Talos, Google, Lauren, everybody. You guys are awesome. So thanks for having me, and I'll see you guys in the next show.
If you're looking for an Xbox Series S at Target this Thursday, it's going to be $250, and you get an extra controller for free, by the way.
Wow.
Okay.
Sweet.
Yeah, Xbox Series S's I think went down to $250 some places on sale.
Yeah, I saw some postings about some crazy deals right now going on. And in the UK, I think you can get like FIFA for free or something. Like you buy a Series S, like it's insane stuff.
Would this be the last FIFA?
Last one named FIFA, I think so. Yeah. Again, chat, you rock. Tune in on Thursday to PM in the PM at 7 p.m. Eastern. We're gonna have a blast, Punk Soul and I. Friday's Xbox Ultimate Podcast at 9 p.m. Eastern. Always a great time and a blast there as well. Appreciate everybody who tunes into any of our shows. Catch any of our game streams, co-streams, and when I have time to drop a video as well. You guys rock. Have a good one. Take it easy. Bye-bye.
Bye, everybody.